Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Batter Round. Don't wipe your eyes. Yes, I am Paul Valley. I am back after a week hiatus, although I have to be honest, it feels like I haven't been here in a month.
It feels like a very long time. Yeah,
it's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like I haven't been here in a month plus. I don't know why. Maybe I just really missed you, Zach.
I think that's what it was.
Maybe I just really missed you.
That's what it was.
I missed all of you. I was playing golf at this time last week, or on my way to go play golf at this time last week down in a family tournament that we do every year called Golf Weekend, and it was a great time. You know, we had a great time. Got to hang out with my dad, and my team never won anything. One guy won a couple of greenies and a clear. Greenie is closest to the pin on a par 3, but you have to make par in order to get it. So he won one of those, and a clear is the lowest net score on a hole, and he got a 2 on a. So he had a birdie on a par 4, and he got a stroke on the hole, so he ended up getting a net 2 on the hole, and nobody else got it. So he ended up getting a clear. So it was a good time. He won some money, and that was cool to see. So you guys don't care about that. You care about Orioles baseball, and there's a lot to talk about today, and we're going to get into all of it. Coming up on the show today, in about 25 minutes, we're going to have Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment. Hopefully he's feeling better. One of the reasons we had to cancel last week's show is because of the fact that Stan was still feeling under the weather. He had a bout with COVID, and he was still not feeling up to doing a show, and certainly not up to coming in and maybe exposing Zach to that. So he graciously stayed home, and we just ended up canceling the show last week. So he'll be up at around 10:25 to talk some Orioles baseball with us. At 11, an article that lit a fire under a lot of Orioles fans by Tim Prudente and Justin Fenton. Of course, Justin Fenton wrote the book We Own This City, that is the basis of the HBO miniseries We Own This City, the same name. He co-wrote that article about a lawsuit between the Angelos brothers and the matriarch of the Angelos family, and he's going to join us for about 10, maybe 15 minutes to talk about the article and give some clarity. It's a really... You get Lewis's side. You hear Lewis's side of the argument. You don't really hear anything from the John Angelo side of things. And he's going to hopefully clear some things up. He's been tweeting on social media saying that this is an ongoing and developing story. So there's still more that's going to come out.
Right. But it's more or less a description of the lawsuit.
Right.
It's kind of what I got out of it. Like, he doesn't really provide much analysis because I don't think that's the point of the article. It's just kind of to let people know this is what it is and this is what's happening. And like you said, it's updating. And we've even gotten some new information, I think, just about the day after that the story originally broke. And it has everyone's eyes on it. That's for sure. I mean, it's certainly captured attention.
Because one of the first things that you see is in the article is, and I'm quoting this from the article, John intends to maintain absolute control over the Orioles, to manage to sell, or if he chooses, to move to Tennessee, and in parentheses, where he has a home and where his wife's career is headquartered, without having to answer to anyone, according to the lawsuit. And that's what got people up in arms, because it's or if he chooses to move to Tennessee.
Right.
And we know Nashville's looking for a ball club. We know Vegas is looking for a ball club.
Sure.
And there were rumors a few years ago that were unfounded that an ownership group was looking to buy and move the Orioles to Vegas. And then we heard about Nashville. Now, I think that Oakland and the Rays are far more likely to move before the Orioles do, not to mention the fact that there's been talks of expansion in Major League Baseball. So if you want to add 2 teams, well, there you just add 2 teams. You don't move another team. I don't know what to make of all this, Zach. I really don't. I read the article 3 times. Mm-hmm. And to me, it just seems like 2 brothers squabbling over the estate of their family. Mm-hmm. And one guy saying, well, I'm running the show. And the other guy being like, well, that's not what Dad wanted. Let me have my piece of the pie, too.
Right.
So hopefully it all gets worked out. I got to tell you, though, man. You look at the Orioles, right, and they went through 14 straight years of losing. We call those the dark ages of the Orioles franchise. They haven't won a World. I almost said Super Bowl. They haven't won a World Series since 1983, well before you were alive and just a year before I was alive.
Right.
They have 13 winning seasons since 1983. Or since 1984. Okay? Playoff appearance, what, 5 times? Five playoff
Sounds
appearances.
right, yeah.
5 playoff appearances since the 83 World Series. Then you look at the fact that after their 5-year run, where they won more games than any team in the American League, they've now lost 100-plus games in 3 seasons out of the last 4. The last 3 full seasons, over 108 losses each of those years. 2017 was an 85-loss season.
Mm-hmm.
This year's going to be an under 500 season. And you were 10 games under 500 in a 60-game season. So we're looking at 6 years of losing baseball, right? Couple that with a $33 million payroll and your top prospect missing the first month of the season with an injury.
Sure.
Your top pitching prospect going to be out likely the rest of the year. Maybe he comes back in September, but at that point, what's the point? And now you have the ownership squabbling.
Right.
This is just a bad look for the franchise, and it's kind of par for the course at this point, right? Where we're looking at just an ill-fated franchise, it seems like. At what point do we just say, you know what? Because it seems as though, just from what I've garnered from this article, it seems as though Lewis and Georgia, Peter Angelos' wife, want to sell the team. That's the gist that I got.
Yes, that's
this.
the way the article makes it out to sound. Yeah,
these two want to sell the team, and John Angelos has said, nah, he's nixed a couple of deals, apparently. It seems to me like the best thing for this franchise at this point is to find a local investor, get the paperwork going, and get this team sold. The fans deserve better than this. It's just one black eye after another.
And I think that's what we're headed toward. I mean, I think we talked about it 2 years ago on the show that John and Lou could be looking to sell the team at some point because I think, frankly, you have Peter Angelos being the father who controlled the team for over 20 years, longer than that, frankly, and, turned it over to his sons, which we don't know really if they both wanted the team or not, and if this was their goal to be able to run the baseball team. I mean, they got handed this off, essentially, as a hand-me-down. And we always kind of figured that, they'd eventually
one hell of
sell.
a hand-me-down.
I mean, well, it is one hell. I mean, the whole fortune is. But I think we kind of both figured that they'd sell the team at some point, that this wouldn't last forever, that, John, he may have interests otherwise in business and that the Orioles may not be his focus. But it seems that John really does like running the Orioles, and that's kind of his passion now, and that's kind of what he's taken over, and he's become the guy there. And that kind of surprises me, but then again, I do think that we're headed towards a sale at some point. And if 2 people are on board in the family with selling it and John isn't, then there's obviously going to be some issues there, and that's kind of where I think we are at this point. People immediately think, oh, well, if they sell the team, then the new owner can do anything they want with the team. And that's correct. Like, they could take it anywhere they wanted. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Orioles aren't leaving. That's not going to happen because John is going to make sure, clearly, he said the Orioles will be in Baltimore until Fort McHenry is here. And that kind of thing.
And we all know in Baltimore that franchise owners have never lied before.
Well, you're not wrong. But look, you really think they're going to move? I mean, I completely...
No, I don't...
I think John will find a buyer that will keep the team in Baltimore. And
I think he can find a buyer to keep the team in Baltimore, but I don't know if he wants to. Again, this article does not give John's side.
No, it doesn't.
This article gives Lewis's side.
And I think the part about Nashville and that John has some business ventures there and his wife has some business ventures there, it's more of Lewis speculating and saying...
Well, and they even said in the article... There have been no allegations of John showing any attempts to get the juices flowing for moving this team.
Right.
And it wasn't that long ago they came out and said the Orioles will stay in Baltimore as long as Fort McHenry watches over Baltimore.
Right.
Now if suddenly for some reason they demolish Fort McHenry and they put up a Harris Teeter, then maybe you can feel like
always need more Harris Teeters.
Yeah. But look. To me, we're just at a point where it's like I'm tired of the embarrassment. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of this franchise being a laughingstock. They've been a laughingstock. The only reason that they weren't a laughingstock when I was a kid was because of Cal Ripken.
Right.
But they've been a laughingstock my entire adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going on 20 years of that. And just figure something out. We got to get something figured out. Let's move forward. And here's the other thing. If they do find a local investor, they're not going to buy the team to be bad. Right?
No.
You're not going to buy this team and be okay with continuing to lose. So I would have to imagine that if you sell the team to a local investment group, or let's say Kevin Plank, right?
Sure. Under Armour.
There's no way that he's coming in here and not saying, all right, go spend money and get this team back to where it needs to be. There's no way that they're not doing that, right?
I guess it depends on the investor. But I would think that they would pick someone out who all the ownership group now that still remains would agree that would make this team a better team and would try to spend money and try to take this team forward and kind of keep it out of controversy, which it's been through a lot of in the past few years, obviously with the rebuild. And then where, this whole lawsuit and everything and just trying to keep the team out of the public eye, I guess, a little bit more is what the next owner could do and take them back to prominence, take them back to spending money, and frankly make them the team that they were in the 1970s and 80s. I mean, that's kind of the goal of Mike Elias.
60s, 70s.
And the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right. And, I mean, that's been the goal of Mike Elias. And I do believe that John and Louis share that vision. But it's coming to a point where something has to change to I guess change the overall outlook for this team in the future.
I was led to believe by people who've been doing this a lot longer than me that Lewis willingly took a step back from the team. That he just wanted to focus on his father's
that's what's been reported.
Law firm, and that John was the one who took over. But this lawsuit makes the accusation that he was forced out. Because he was working for the John Angelos wasn't involved with the Orioles after 2009, and Lewis worked with them from 2013 to 2016.
You're right. John left for a little while.
He worked directly with the ball club. And the only reason John came back is because after their father fell ill, Peter asked him to come back and help with the ball club, and so he did. So I was led to believe that Lewis willingly took a step back, but it would seem, at least based on this article, that is not the case. Now, Zach, what about you, man? Do you have enough money to invest? Do you want to invest in some ownership here and get this team back to fruition?
Look, maybe ask me in 30 years. I'll be on board then. But I think right now,
man, you're gonna be a billionaire in 30 years.
I'm not sure my multiple $1,000 net worth is gonna cover the sale of the team.
I gotta keep you as a friend if in 30 years you're gonna have $1 billion.
Maybe if we put our funds together, we can get like
I don't know about that.
We can get a 0.2% of the team.
How about this? Maybe you have enough money to invest in a Toyota RAV4.
I probably do.
All right, and today's show is brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Make the most out of every day in a Toyota RAV4, available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today. We're going to get more into this article from the Baltimore Banner by Justin Fenton here at around the 11 o'clock. In the 11 o'clock hour, Justin's going to join the show and give us some clarity on this. And like we said, this is developing an ongoing story. So I'm sure we're going to learn more in the days, weeks, months, and years to come, because if we know anything about the Orioles, and I think we do, these things tend to drag out quite a bit. So we'll...
Sure. I mean, lawsuits always drag out quite a bit. This is not the end of the story here.
We're in year 73 of the Masson dispute. So.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So, anyway, moving on. The Orioles did play a game last night, even if it seems like they didn't show up. They lost to the Kansas City Royals 8-1. Are the Kansas City Royals, record-wise, the worst team in baseball? Do they have the worst record?
It may be. I know they're not that far off from some other teams that are at the bottom of the barrel. I think the Reds might still be the worst.
Bottom of the barrel. Let's get into the records real quick. Pull up my handy-dandy standings. The Royals have the second worst record in the American League at 20-37. As the Oakland Athletics are 20-40. They've lost 10 straight. Athletics have lost 10 straight. And they have the third worst record in all of baseball.
Actually, the Athletics do have the worst record in baseball.
I'm saying that the Royals have the third worst record in baseball. And
I figured it'd be the Reds, because the Reds were, they went like 3 for their first 17 or something like that as far as wins go. So
they were 3-22.
3-20.
And then they went 12-8 the next 20 games.
Right, and now they're 20-38 somehow. So
yeah, so it's 17-16 ever since they started 2-32. So, well, look, the Orioles have found themselves on just a really, really poor streak here where the starting
Yeah.
pitching has been awful. Bruce Zimmermann, man, I don't know how he ever had success based on the way he's been pitching the last month. And it seems as though his changeup is just sitting.
It's hanging right in the top of the zone. I mean,
it's
not,
right in the middle of the strike zone,
yeah.
and it's not moving.
No.
It's basically a glorified batting practice fastball.
It's like a Tom Eshelman fastball. Sorry, Tom.
Right. and it's he's getting beat up basically. Right. And then Jordan Lyles, he had a 3.58 ERA, or no, I'm sorry, 3.65 ERA in May. His ERA is over 9 in his 2 starts in June. He hasn't been good the last 3 starts. The Orioles rotation as a whole. I mean, 2 days ago they were down 4-1 after the second inning. Mm-hmm. They were down 3-0 after the first inning last night. They find themselves down 7-0 in the 5th inning. Mm-hmm. They finally score a run on an Anthony Santander home run.
Timely hitting.
In the 9th inning. And here's the other thing that I was going to bring up until he hit that home run. He had 2 hits last night. The Orioles, I think, have 4 as a team. He had 2 of them. What is going on with Santander? The last 2 years, he can't hit. He's good for the occasional home run, but the batting average is below 240 this year. It's below 240 last year. He was hitting 261, I think, when he got hurt in the truncated season. I think he was hitting right around that same mark when he ended the season really poorly because of the shoulder issue in 2019. Suddenly, this guy just can't hit anymore. He can't hit for average. He'll hit the occasional home run. He'll have the occasional 2 or 3 hit game. But watch, he had 2 hits last night. He won't get a hit for 3 games.
You're probably not wrong. I mean, that's been kind of the pattern with him. I guess that 2020 season, I'm just looking it up now, it was 37 games and 165 plate appearances. Mm-hmm. And maybe there was a bit of overreaction from people, including us in the media, about what he did that year because it was such a short sample size.
But the thing is, his first year of extended playing time in 2019, he hit 20 homers.
You're right, he did, and he hit 261, which was a drastically higher average than where he's at now. You're right.
And he was hitting above 290 going into the final month of the season.
Yeah.
And he had a labrum issue, and he couldn't hit after that because he was in pain. So he comes out in 2019, he hits 261 with 20 homers, and that's with basically, I think he went like 3 for 31 in September before they shut him down.
Right.
Then 2020 he comes out. He's on fire the first month. He's among the league leaders in hits, RBIs, not batting average, but he was among the league leaders in extra base hits, home runs, and RBIs.
Yeah.
Misses the last month of the season and still wins Most Valuable Oriole. Mm-hmm. Then last year he hurts the ankle. He got off to a really bad start, then hurt the ankle at the end of April and was never the same player. And this year, what's the excuse this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. I mean, it's simply. I mean, even
simply the bets.
We're gonna. By the way, Glenn Clark Radio. The lineup is also stronger around him. He's got more protection in the lineup. Right. There really is no excuse here. I don't know why. Simply that he's not being as successful. And you look at the on base percentage. It is the highest it's ever been at 337, which is quite a bit higher than it was even in 2019.
How many walks does he have for the year?
28.
Okay,
which is 5 more than he had in the entirety of last year.
And it feels like it wasn't that long ago that he got his 23rd walk. He is walking more.
He is,
but the walk rate has come down from the beginning of the year.
The walk rate, frankly, is the only thing here that's a redeemable quality of his hitting numbers. I mean, you've got 10 home runs, fine, but he had 11 in 37 games in 2020. Mm-hmm. So the power's fallen off a little bit. The average at 236 is drastically lower than he had in 19 and 20. I don't know. I mean, it's simply the fact that he's not hitting as well for average. He's not getting on base by hits as much. He's walking more. That's fine, I guess. But you definitely want to see him hit for a little more average. And it's definitely concerning when you see his power numbers have dropped off a little bit too, with the fact that there's more protection in this lineup and that you've got Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes and Trey Mancini and all these other guys around you that are hitting well. I mean, in 2019, he was like one of the only guys, right? He was one of the only ones.
It was him. It was him, VR, and Mancini.
Right, and that was basically it. And now there's up and down the lineup. It's not too bad, and it's definitely concerning. I don't know. I can't put my finger on what the issue might be for him.
Meanwhile, Kyle Stowers is down in AAA, and he's tearing the cover off the ball, and it puts you in a unique situation because you know what Santander can do.
Sure.
And there are times when his offense has carried a team. I mean, you look at that game in 2020 where they scored 5 runs off of Max Scherzer, and he hit 2 home runs off of him.
Yeah.
They ended up losing that game because of a pass ball by Pedro Severino, and then he comes up with the bases loaded and strikes out in a big situation. Not like I have ever harped on that game. But anyway, So you don't, and you have team control, so you're not going to DFA.
No.
Anthony Santander, and especially he hits in the middle of your order every game, right? You're not going, and unless you trade him, and I don't know that you're going to get a willing trade partner for him. So what do you do about Kyle Stowers?
Well, I think Stowers is one of those guys, and we talked about it with Rutschman, and we talked about it with a lot of the top prospects, that you can't bring them up and not play them. He's not going to come up and sit on the bench.
Exactly, that's my point.
Right, so you have to do something with one of them. Austin Hayes is one of the better players in baseball right now.
Mm-hmm.
Cedric Mullins is slumping, not what he was in 2021, but he's still a guy you're probably not going to get rid of at the time. Especially, you're not going to trade a guy at his lowest value point. That's just, you're not going to do that with Cedric. To be fair, he has a lot more value. You could say the same thing about Santander, but I think Cedric has a lot more value in the long term, and he's probably a guy that you want to try to get, hit a few more home runs, get the average up a little bit, and then you deal him if that's the way you want to go. Santander is easily the most replaceable starting outfielder you have. He's the guy that has been around for a little while. He's been around through basically all of these rebuild years. And he looks to be the guy, I think, that could easily be the first one out. And you could easily trade him. You're not going to get a ton.
The thing about Santander, as I said a couple of years ago, that I thought he was going to be the best player to come out of this rebuild, not named Adley Rutschman.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has power from both sides. At that point, he was tearing the cover off the ball. And he plays really good defense in right field. Like, he's not the most fleet of foot, but he plays really good defense.
His play in left field last night, though, whew, that was not a...
I didn't see that. I was
Bobby Witt Jr. hit a line drive, and he didn't break back on it, and it simply just went over his head. He just did not. He broke back really late.
Well, and that's the other thing.
And then a lazy throw back in, and he got a triple.
I'll tell you, I've played right field a lot in my life, and moving from right field to left field is very difficult.
Well, that's on Brandon Hyde though. Why is he moving Austin Hayes and Santander basically every night back
in
2019?
2019, Santander is playing left field every day.
Right, but what's the point of moving these guys and switching their spots every night?
Hayes
that's questionable.
Has the arm to play right field.
He does. He absolutely
does.
And
the defensive skills to play anywhere in the outfield. Honestly, I feel like Hayes should be playing center field at this point. I think it should be Hayes in center field. I think it should be Mullins in left field. And you've watched Mullins throw home, and it's laughable. It's laughable.
His arm is more suited for left field.
Yeah.
And Santander can play. His arm can play in right. And Austin Hayes' arm certainly plays in right.
You should be every day. It should be Mullins in left. Mm-hmm. It should be Hayes in center, and it should be Santander in right. And you shouldn't change that up. Now, people are going to get on me for saying, "Oh, you should move Cedric Mullins to left field." Well, he's so good. He's fast, man, and he catches a lot of baseballs. You know where you need to be fast and catch a lot of baseballs? Left field.
Right, yeah.
And his arm is more suited for that position.
Right, you're throwing from 410 in center field, from the deepest part of the park in Camden Yards, from about, 380 in left field. So, you're gaining about 30 feet as far as, his arm's just going to play better.
On a base hit to left field with a guy on second base, Mullins has a far greater chance to throw him out than he does from center field.
Right.
Hayes can throw. You're going to see, if you move Hayes to center field, you will see a lot more guys nabbed at the plate.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of guys not trying him because everybody in baseball is beginning to recognize this dude's an elite defender.
Right.
And he's got an elite arm. Now, we got to move on real quick. Another top prospect made his professional debut 2 years to the day after being drafted number 2 overall. Heston Kjerstad was activated off Delmarva's injured list last night. He went 1 for 4 in his professional debut, and he drove in the lone run for Delmarva in their loss. I think they lost 4-1 last night. And he drove in the lone run on an RBI ground out in the first inning. So Heston Kjerstad, he's already 23 years old, man. He's already 23 years old, and he's just now beginning his big league career. I mean, his professional career. You're hoping there's no more setbacks, no more hamstring issues, no more myocarditis. No, and look, that one he can't help.
No.
That one he can't help. And you get that the hamstring injury is him. He's rearing to go, and he probably overdid it too early in camp, right? So hopefully he's back, he's healthy, he has no more injury issues here, and he can get going here and hopefully make his way to Bowie maybe by the end of the year, beginning of next year, and be part of the Orioles' plans in 2024. And then at that point, he'll be 25. It's time for him to get going, and I don't really know what to expect out of Heston Kjerstad at this point because he is 23 years old. It's not likely he debuts before he's 25 years old. And at that point, you're looking at another Trey Mancini where you get a few years out of him, and then when his next big contract comes up, he's already in his 30s, right? You're looking at a guy with Heston Kjerstad, Zach, where how does this not play out the same way that Trey Mancini has at best?
Yeah, I mean, he's 23 years old already, and a guy being 23 in Delmarva is certainly a concern. And Paul Mancano was on the Orioles pregame show last night and mentioned how he could be in Bowie by the end of the year. But even if he is, you're still looking at what? At best, a late 2023 debut. At best, and
if and when he becomes an everyday player for the Orioles, he's gonna be 25 years old.
Right. So yeah, right.
And then,
it is going to be
and
a
then
transition.
by the time he gets an opportunity for his first big contract after arbitration, he's in his 30s, and you're probably ready to move on.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, and it's not. This is no fault of his own
Or the Orioles, frankly.
Right. You can't blame a guy for getting myocarditis. You can't blame a guy for being amped to be in spring training and be healthy after being drafted number 2 overall and not being able to start his professional career because of a health issue that he had nothing to do with, and then he tries to go too hard. Right. I mean, Bryce Harper's one of the best players in the game, and we watched that guy run face first into a wall because he was playing hard. Tell these guys not to play hard. You can't do it. You know, and I can't blame Heston Kjerstad for the hamstring injury. He was amped. You know, what are you gonna do? You're gonna tell him, hey, don't go hard, man.
No, we know
you're 2 years behind the 8 ball here, but don't go hard.
Man, but right? two years after you're drafted, you did
to the day.
That's rough.
The day. Well, hopefully he can hit the ground running. And
yep.
1 for 4 and drove in the lone run for Delmarva last night. That's a good start to his career. With that in mind, joining us on the show today, haven't talked to him in a while. He is Stan the Fan. Charles, Stan, good morning to you. How are you feeling? You feeling any better today?
I'm feeling getting there. Getting there.
Well, I'm glad that you sound a lot better than the last time we talked. So I've
still got the little tiny bit of the after effects of having gotten through the COVID, but then my allergies kicked in again immediately afterwards, and I'm pretty sure that's what's got me going.
Yes.
A lot of coughing and wheezing, but I don't feel that bad.
I'll tell you, Stan, the allergies are kicking my butt too. I was a leaky false
yesterday.
Awful.
I think they're going to find my nephew Josh and I were talking about it the other night. We were texting back and forth because he's gotten hit terribly with allergies this year, and I said I'll bet they'll find it's another result of global warming.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah, there's always something, man. There's always something. Now, I know it wasn't in the notes that I sent you, but we were just talking about Heston Kjerstad, and he had his professional debut last night, Stan. 1 for 4, drove in the lone run on an RBI ground out in the first inning.
Let's bring him up to Norfolk.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
Go.
Right.
Let's go.
Stan, he debuted yesterday on the 2-year anniversary of the day that he was drafted number 2 by the Orioles, and we were just talking about how it's not his fault that he got myocarditis, and he hurt the hamstring playing hard. Trying to make a diving play out in left field. So I can't blame a young guy whose career has been sidetracked trying to go hard. You know what I mean? But at this point, he's 23 years old. It's looking like he won't be here till he's 25. What is the best case scenario for the Orioles with Heston Kjerstad?
Best case scenario is they get a good 5 to 7 years out of them. 8 years. I mean, we're so busy looking for the next great thing that, you might have a very fine player for 8 years, and that would be the worst case scenario for the Baltimore Orioles. And he'd make a fair amount of money in 8 years, 8, 9 years.
And we're talking about how...
we're talking about a big chunk of a man's life, and we're like dismissing him already that, well, he won't get here till he's 25. What's the difference, in the grand scheme of things?
Well,
who are we feeling bad for exactly? Who's that bad for? For him? For the franchise? For the fans? I mean, I think we get caught up in this prospectitis.
Yeah.
And I think it's the guy got started last night. Let's hope that he can make let's not call it meteoric rise, but that would be a real nice rise if he can go from Delmarva to Aberdeen to Bowie this year. That would be fantastic.
Yeah,
You know?
no, I agree with you, Stan, and I guess,
Yeah.
and it's a fair point that we get caught up in this prospectitis, and it's like, well, this guy needs to be here by the time he's 22 years old, and he needs to be hitting 40
Right.
home runs by the time he's 24,
Right.
right?
Right.
But
I mean, 4 weeks ago, we were talking about how terrible it was that Rutschman wasn't up.
yeah,
And does Rutschman look like he's exactly ready to be a star right now? But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be up. It just means we get caught up. Look at Spencer Torkelson's having a terrible year.
Yeah.
With the Detroit Tigers. Um, Bobby Witt looks like he's about to turn the corner and become a really nice player.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody doubts that these players are going to be something significant in their careers. I guess my point there, Stan, is you look at a guy like Trey Mancini, who came up when he was 25, and all he's done, with the exception of the time when he had the knee injury from sliding into the wall and then cancer, he's done nothing but hit. And that he's back to doing that this year, but he's 30 years old now, and he doesn't have a contract for next year. And you're wondering if Heston Kjerstad's going to suffer the same fate, because once you get to 30, you're kind of old news in baseball, no matter when you debuted. And so I look at that, and so I guess my worry is for the player, because I think that if he was drafted number 2 overall for a reason. If he comes up here and he plays that way, there's still no guarantee that he's going to get a contract once he's through arbitration.
Right.
So I guess for him, it's being able to maximize his financial earnings to the best of his ability.
I think right now, Heston is probably really more focused on just playing and staying healthy.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
And hoping the numbers will be what they should be.
Right. Now, Stan, you mentioned Adley Rutschman, batting just 153, a 451 OPS, no home runs, no RBIs, just 3 extra base hits in 16 games. Now, Stan, I'm not concerned yet, because you mentioned guys like Bobby Witt and Spencer Torkelson. Julio Rodriguez got off to a really slow start too, and they've all, with the exception of Torkelson, they've started to turn the corner here. But at what point should we start to get concerned with Adley Rutschman?
Depends what your expectations were for him. I've never had these huge expectations that he was going to win batting crowns and lead the league in RBIs or home runs.
Right.
I think he's going to be a really terrific complementary player on a team in a leadership position. I think his number one thing when he gets settled in will again be his defense and his leadership on the team. And he's a switch hitter. And look, we interviewed Glenn and I the other day interviewed Jim Bowden for his show, and that I sat in on yesterday. And Bowden said, not worried about him at all. In 2 or 3 years, he'll be the best catcher in the game.
Well, and
that's good enough for me.
And I'm watching MLB Network the other day, and they're doing a whole segment on Adley Rutschman, and they said, "Look, you don't need to change anything. Just keep playing your game, and the numbers are going to come." And that's how I feel about Adley Rutschman. But you can't help but notice a lot of these people on social media who are like, "Oh, they brought him up too soon. He doesn't look like number 1 overall pick." And it's like,
they're the same people that 3 weeks ago were sending out the meme of him as a 70-year-old saying he won the Rookie of the Year in 2052,
Right.
There's an awful lot of noise on social media about everything.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Now, Stan, the Orioles had been playing some really good baseball.
Yeah.
And then they're entering this 11-game stretch where they play Seattle, Cleveland, the Chicago Cubs, and the Kansas City Royals. And people are saying, "Oh, the Orioles might go on a nice little run here." 9 games into that stretch, Stan, they're 3-6.
Yep.
And actually, it was supposed to be a 12-game stretch.
This is disappointing, these last 2 games. And I'll be quite honest with you. I'm a baseball fan first and foremost, but I watched Thursday night. I watched the House, January 6th committee was prime on my viewing. And last night I watched one of the most incredible basketball games, between the Warriors and the Celtics.
Right.
Performance for the ages by Steph Curry. That sort of trumped watching Bruce Zimmermann. You know.
Yeah. You look at
This is a team that we're playing right now that is sort of down and out, and to go in there and that's what we can do for 2 nights. It's disappointing.
Yeah,
you know.
you look up at the I look up at the TV because I had to work both Thursday and Friday, but I look up at the TV, and in the second inning, Jordan Lyles has his team in a 4-1 hole. And then I look up
Right.
at the TV yesterday, and it's the bottom of the first inning. There's Zimmerman's still on the mound, and they're down 3-0. And
Right.
it's like the Kansas City Royals hadn't even won 20 games yet, and you're watching them just put it on the Orioles.
Yep.
And then and the offense, look, the offense has come back from big deficits. They've been a comeback team this year. But when you're consistently down early to one of the worst teams in baseball, it's got to be disheartening for you. And then, Heasley, 1 hit allowed in 7 shutout innings last night.
Yeah.
He was absolutely dominant against
Yeah.
the team. Do we have it seems like the Orioles play the better teams harder. And I'm not saying that they're not playing hard.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that.
But they go up against these middling to low rent teams, and they can't get the
Well,
job
I
done.
wouldn't call Seattle and
That's
call
true.
Seattle and Cleveland
They've got
low
talent.
rent teams.
They've
They're
got
further
talent.
along than the Orioles by far. And the big difference between the Orioles and Cleveland, while you look at our day-to-day lineup and you go, wow, we match up nicely with Cleveland. We don't have Zach Plesac. We don't have Shane Bieber. We don't have pitchers like that.
Right.
We've got a second-tier, maybe third-tier rotation, and it's being pieced together but with loincloth, picking up Austin Voth, picking up Logan Allen. It's always going to be trying to create a story that they can talk about for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm sure in 3-4 weeks we'll get the Matt Harvey story, for 4 or 5 starts,
Yeah, no,
and
you're probably right.
It's all about like treading water through a season. And again, I'm not saying they should have gone out and spent $75 million on 2 pitchers or something like that, but to pick up Jordan Lyles, and that was sort of it. I think Jordan Lyles has done sort of what he was supposed to do here.
I agree.
Been a little disappointing that he hasn't been keeping the team a little bit more in games, but he's been able to eat up some innings. But that's where they stopped, with him.
Yeah, and he had a 3.65 ERA in 6 starts in May, and an over 9 ERA in June, and then and look, the Orioles, to their credit, they were a bloop away in each of the series with Seattle and Cleveland from winning those series. They could have been 4-2 instead of 2-4 in those, and it just didn't work out that way. 2-1 losses, 2-1-run losses. Excuse me. That happens. That's baseball. Now,
but I remember Bill hearing this I was down in spring training about 5 years ago, and Billy Epler was the general manager of the Angels at the time. He's certainly got a better job now as general manager of the New York Mets. And he was talking about how they were concerned that they only had like 8 or 9 candidates as starting pitchers.
Right.
And I'm going, 8 or 9, and you're like concerned about that. He said you needed like 11 or 12, starting candidates in this day and age with injuries and different things that pop up here and there and all that. And boy, was he right, because in no time they had a couple injuries and they fell off the face of the planet that year,
Yeah.
And that's sort of what the Orioles tried to do this year. They tried to come in with smoking, like Mike's main objective has been to get the pipeline of everyday position players geared up. And that's when he made those comments 10 days ago about, hey, we got blue skies. That's what he's talking about is, hey, we've done the heavy lifting of doing that. But it's almost like he is totally ignored pitching. And I get that when you're a guru with the analytics and all that, it tells you not to draft young pitchers high because they're too risky. But I don't also see where they're going to come up with the pitching to ever match the hitting that they have.
Right now,
in the pipeline.
With that in mind, do you anticipate them doing more this coming off season to address the starting rotation than they did this past season?
I would think they'd have to.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're gonna let's be honest. Next year, you're gonna go into the season with Grayson Rodriguez as not a suspect or a project, but it's not like we know for a fact this will not have residual issues going into 2023 season. Okay.
Right.
I mean, we can agree that he's pretty much going to be on lockdown the rest of this year. They're not going to take.
I don't see any reason to pitch him again this year.
DL Hall is a suspect in terms. I don't think there's any question DL Hall will be a successful major league pitcher and perhaps very successful. But will he be Josh Hader or will he be will he be Jacob deGrom? I don't know the answer to that, and they won't know the answer to that. They'll get some answers on him if he stays healthy. And those are the two guys. John Means is certainly somebody you're kind of counting on as an important cog in the starting rotation.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best case scenario for him? That he's ready to start games in June next year?
They say that now it's a 9 to 12 month injury, but it can linger to 15 to 18 months.
Right.
I think if you get him back in June, that's and we saw Chris
and that's
Sale
about,
came back in
and
June.
We're talking about getting 2 or 3 starts where he pitches 3 innings or something. You know what I mean? And then gearing up. So by the All-Star game next year, maybe John Means is back to what he is. And then you got this whole coterie of failed guys, and frankly, they were from the previous regime. But you give credit to the previous regime for Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall, but they don't deserve kudos for Alexander Wells, Michael Bowman, Zach Lowther, Cody Sedlock, Blaine Knight, all failed. You know, Mike made what he thought was a smart trade from a surplus, and he picked up a starting prospect in Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith's been awful. I mean, he's been that's a failed deal.
Right.
You know, and other than that, the only things he's done pitching wise are of any import were Jordan Lyles for 1 year and picking up Kyle Bradish. He has not improved the starting pitching one iota.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that with these prospects graduating to the major league level and all the high draft picks spent on college bats, there's probably going to be another high impact bat, whether it's a high school or college player this year.
Yeah.
You have to imagine that at some point, and hopefully it's this coming off season, he really seriously addresses the starting rotation. Now, Stan, we only have a few.
Jim Bowden made the point again about the wall. And he said that wall was designed by Mike Elias to do one thing. That's attract some pitchers that won't mind pitching in Camden Yards.
I think that was my initial reaction as well.
So let's keep our fingers crossed. And I left out one guy. I know we got to move along. But Dean Kramer is inching his way back into being interesting.
Yeah, no, the control in his rehab stint was impeccable. He walked the one guy that honestly, it should have been a strikeout in the first inning of his comeback start, and the next guy ended up hitting a 3-run homer, and then he gave up nothing after that, and no walks either.
Yeah, so I'm anxious to see what Dean can do over a 4 or 5 start thing.
He's going to get another shot tomorrow in Kansas City, so we'll be sure to be tuned into that. Now, Stan, elephant in the room, and we have to talk about it, even though we don't know a lot about what's going on. Tim Prudente and Justin Fenton wrote an article for the Baltimore Banner that came out 2 days ago. And apparently, Louis Angelos is suing John Angelos and their mother, Georgia Angelos, stating that John intends to maintain absolute control over the Orioles to manage to sell, or if he chooses to move to Tennessee, where he has a home and where his wife's career is headquartered, without having to answer to anyone, according to the lawsuit. When you read this, what was your knee-jerk reaction?
Well, sadness, to be honest with you. Here's a local family of great renown that bought this franchise back and put together the group that could buy the franchise out of bankruptcy in 1993. So they've owned it longer than anybody. They've owned it 29 years now. And it's sadness that this is sort of devolved to this pissing match between two sides of the family. It's sad for them. It's sad for the fans. But if the two worst things in the lawsuit are that he fired Brady Anderson and that he's intending to move the team to Nashville, then I don't think we have any real substance to any damages that he's done to the Baltimore Orioles. I won't give you the name of this person, but the former general manager in the major leagues that I've been friendly with for years. And I called him up about 4.5 years ago, and I said, hey, I'm not saying I can definitely get you an interview with John Angelos, but would you have any interest in? And he goes, Stan, he goes, I don't know, it's such a crazy situation there. And he was sort of asking me for some information. I said, look, I don't think Dan's going to be back, and they're going to need somebody. I said, would you have some interest? He goes, the first thing I'd do if I got a meeting with him is say, what the F does Brady Anderson do? And who does he answer to?
Yeah, we were all wondering that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, that was really just an awful situation to put him in that position, sort of like he was sort of working for Dan Duquette, but he was really higher up than Dan Duquette because he had the ownership's ear. Those two pitchers that I'll admit I was excited the couple days when they signed Andrew Kashner and Alex Cobb. Turned out that those two pitchers came from his agent. Right. So that was very low-hanging fruit for him to accomplish something like that. He never really suffered from any downturn in power because of that. I mean, he was there, but it's turned out that he was sort of Lewis's guy and John and the dad's guy. And you sort of knew that any good baseball man worth his salt wasn't coming in until that was clarified in the way that it was clarified.
Right. Now, what we've read in the article is that it seems that there may have been a couple of opportunities to sell the team, and John nixed that. And it doesn't seem as though Lou was very happy about that. Georgia seemed intent, based on what I read in the article, Georgia seemed intent on selling the ball club herself. Do you think
she probably wanted to sell the club because she could foresee an issue like this arising, which is, and it's kind of very embarrassing for the family. And let's not forget what's about to happen Sunday night, the Paul McCartney concert.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like Lewis in his vengefulness is sort of dropping a turd at John's doorstep, to embarrass him in front of what should be sort of a shining moment for John and the franchise that they're able to pull this off. I just want to say one other thing. I don't know what Lewis has to prove, what Peter's intentions were, but remember one thing. At the end of the day, you think you own the franchise. It's a Major League Baseball franchise, and Major League Baseball has approved John Angelos to run the Baltimore Orioles.
That's true.
I'm not sure Lewis would have gotten that same approval. Okay? So whatever's going on between the two of them, we're never really going to be privy to know the deep, dark secrets of that. But I will tell you that Major League Baseball approved John Angelos to be the man running this team.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm interested to see how this all plays out. I just want it out of the public eye at this point, Stan. Because like you said, it's embarrassing.
Look, it's really ironic that this occurs, and then the very next day there's a pissing match about the Los Angeles Chargers and the Spanos family with the same exact dynamic going on.
Yeah.
we always envy people that have money. It's not without, you know, a certain kind of punishment for people that have money.
Absolutely. Stan, thank you so much, man. This was a great conversation. We look forward to talking to you again next week, and I hope you start to feel better, all right?
Where was Zach?
Zach was just kindly listening.
You know, Stan, I had nothing to add, so I thought Paul covered it all very
well. I love talking to Zach.
He's
the smartest. When the three of us are talking baseball, Paul, he's the smartest guy in the room.
I don't know about that.
Well, he wants to be a scout and then a general manager one day, so I get that. He has to be the smartest guy in the room.
All right.
We'll talk to you next week, Stan. Take care.
I'll talk to you soon, guys.
All right, see you. And that was Stan the Fan, Charles, who has two great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Tuesday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan and Ross caught up with the Orioles legend Mike Boddicker, while Stan and Gary chatted with rock star UMBC softball pitcher Courtney Coppersmith, who is returning to school to pitch for another year while also pursuing a Ph.D. Find those shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan and Ross are back on Monday with former Hall of Fame President Jeff Idelson and baseball photographer Gene Fruth. We are not going to break just yet.
Not going to break. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Because we got to get in sounding off, because then we got to hit break, and then we got to get
Correct.
Justin Fenton
Okay.
on. So Zach is going to sound off for us about the importance of managers. Today's sounding off segment with Zach Goodman is brought to you by the Live Casino and Hotel in Maryland. The best place to be for the playoffs and all the big upcoming events is the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Bet on every sport with 61 self-service kiosks open 24/7 and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. Tonight, Glover Teixeira defends his belt against Yuri Prohaska in the main event of UFC 275. I think it's Prohaska. Catch all of the action in the FanDuel Sportsbook while you cash in on all the many prop bets available. Reserve your spot for tonight's fight by emailing events@sportssocialmd.com. Zachary, what you got for me?
Yeah, I want to talk about the Angels and the move they made this week, firing a veteran manager by the name of Joe Maddon. Right, I was shocked too, and I think a lot of people around the league were, frankly, because you look at what the Phillies did with Joe Girardi a few weeks ago, and that wasn't surprising in the slightest, because Joe Girardi, not the greatest manager in the world. And I want to preface this by saying I do think there are good and bad managers in baseball. I think the job of a manager is very much to create a good culture and promote good player development. I think those are the two biggest jobs a manager has. And I don't necessarily think that Joe Maddon was failing in either one of those categories. I think it was a very unwarranted firing, personally. The Angels they're in a bit of a slide right now. Mike Trout was in like an 0-for-22 stretch where he was struggling, and the whole team, frankly, is struggling.
Ohtani hasn't been the same player offensively that he was last year.
Right, and even the pitching hasn't been as good for Ohtani. And frankly, the pitching was well overperforming for the Angels. They had a lot of guys that were pitching well above their current role, I guess, and their current ability. And that's why the Angels, to start the season, were doing pretty good. I mean, they were in first place in the AL West for a little while. They had
the best record in the American League at one point.
Right, they did, and they were really playing well, and they were overperforming. I think it's fair to say. And I'm not going to get into whether that was Joe Maddon or not, or if he had any influence on that, because I do believe. I'm of the minority opinion, I guess, that managers do not have a significant influence on day-to-day win-loss record. I just don't believe that a manager can turn around a team so greatly, so quick. Like, by firing Joe Maddon, you're going to get, whoever takes over, which is Tyler Nevin's father, Phil Nevin, is not going to make a significant difference in the win-loss record. I think, again, the job of a manager is not to significantly influence these wins, but it's to promote good player development for the long-term picture. And I think the two kind of go hand in hand, because good player development eventually leads to your win-loss record and becoming better. But I believe that Joe Maddon was fired in a kind of unwarranted situation, because I don't think he was the fault for the Angels losing.
Somebody's got to be the scapegoat.
Well,
right?
exactly.
And you're not going to fire the whole team. You're not going to fire the GMs. Who are you going to fire?
Right.
You're going to fire the manager. And you look at it, Joe Girardi wore out his welcome with the Yankees, right? And it was because they felt like the reports were that the locker room kind of felt like he was out of touch with today's game. Right?
And I think that's why Girardi was fired from the Phillies as well.
Well, and then you look at the Phillies, they've won 8 games in a row and 7-0 since they fired Girardi. Yeah. So it seems to, and you have to take into account the fact that sometimes a team will start to play better after the manager gets fired because they're embarrassed that their poor play got their manager fired, if he's their guy, right? And to me, I think that the manager does make a big difference because look at what Buck Showalter has done for the New York Mets, and when you look at the fact that they've spent most this year without Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer, two best pitchers on the freaking planet, and they're still have one of the best records in the National League, and they're first place by a good bit in the NL East. You look at the San Diego Padres with Bob Melvin, with basically the same team they had last year, minus Fernando Tatis, and they are far and away better than they were last year. I saw something on MLB Network yesterday that said that the Padres have not had a pitcher pitch on normal rest, on 4 days rest, since May 9th. They've had 46 occurrences this year where a pitcher was pitching on 5 days rest. And if you look at their rotation, Joe Musgrove is 7-0 with a major league leading 1.50 ERA. And they have the third best rotation ERA in baseball, behind the $250 million Dodgers and the $250 million Yankees.
But I would,
and you're going to tell me the guy was so insignificant as a manager. I can't even remember his freaking name. The manager of the Padres from last year.
Oh, Tingler. Jace Tingler.
Jace Tingler.
Yeah.
Jace Tingler. You're going to tell me that the Padres will be doing this year with Jace Tingler instead of Bob Melvin? Bob Melvin is 100%. And then all you have to do is look at what Bob Melvin did in Oakland with a low payroll and not a great club, and had them in the playoffs every year.
I think it boils down to culture, and that's my point with this. I think that Joe Madden is a guy that promotes a good culture, and I think the Buck Showalter is absolutely. Buck Showalter, the players love him. Everyone loves the guy. And I think with Bob Melvin, same thing. Players love the guy. And I think that's what it boils down to. I don't think that, making the lineups or the pitching decisions that they make are really that, impactful on what happens day to day. I just don't think that by putting out a lineup card that would be slightly different than what Jace Tingler would have done, that Bob Melvin is drastically changing the win-loss record. I think that's the misconception there. I think that the culture that they cultivate and promote is the most important thing in why these teams turn around from, frankly, a mediocre team to a good team. And I think that's what Buck Showalter did. I think it's 100% a culture thing. And that's why I said I think they're good or bad managers. I mean, Jace Tingler, you're right, bad manager. Bob Melvin, really good manager. But the fact is that the lineup cards they're putting out or the pitching decisions they're making in game, I don't think have a drastic effect. And a lot of that comes from the front office too, which is also, I guess, a misconception, is that the front office, especially these days, is really sending down a lot of these lineups and pitching decisions. So
you think the front office is doing that?
I think in some cases, sure. I mean, the movie or the book Astro Ball talked a lot about how the Astros did that.
Yeah, and I mean, you looked at, if you watch the movie Moneyball, Billy Beane trying to tell him who he wanted playing and where he wanted them batting, and the manager being like, "This is my ball club." No,
that too, right? Yeah, sure. And Buck Showalter, probably not a guy who gets bossed around by the front office.
Oh,
I couldn't imagine.
I think that's why he and Dan Duquette butted heads so much, because maybe Dan Duquette tried to run things a certain way, and Buck was like, "I'm the on-field manager. I'm doing things my way."
Right. He's definitely, and Bob Melvin, probably the same thing. The veteran managers definitely.
I think that if you're looking at it from a standpoint of Kevin Cash managing the Rays and Brandon Hyde managing the Orioles, yeah, probably not a huge difference, right? But then you look at it, you get rid of who was the manager of the Mets last year? Was it Rojas?
It might have been, it was Rojas.
You get rid of Rojas and you bring in Buck Showalter. You get rid of Tingler, you bring in Bob Melvin. And I think that those guys are difference makers. I was shocked to see Joe Madden get the boot. And I think that he was saying that he was anticipating the Angels, when he got the job, that might be one of his last stops.
Yeah.
I don't know that he gets I think he could have any job he wants in baseball. Yeah. The question is, does he want one anymore? So, look, we really got to catch a break. We're running behind here. When we come back in here on the Bat Around, we're going to have the author of We Own This City, the same name of the HBO miniseries is based off of his book, and the writer of the John and Louis Angelos lawsuit article for the Baltimore Banner, Justin Fenton, joins us after this.
Hey, B More. The Orioles 2022 Birdland Summer Music Series presented by Miller Lite kicks off Friday, June 17th with Flo Rida. After the O's take on the Tampa Bay Rays, stay for the post-game concert and watch Flo Rida perform live from the infield. The concert is free to all fans who attend the game, with the option to add special on-field access. With hit singles like My House and his latest single, Wait, what better way to watch Flo Rida perform live at Camden Yards on June 17th? Buy tickets now at Orioles.com/music.
Baseball is back, and so is the spring seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with our popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and take a bite out of the Crunch Burger, topped with home run sauce, white American cheese, and house-made chips. It also features irresistible options like a baseball-cut sirloin with blue cheese, grilled shrimp with garlic butter, and a strawberry salmon salad. And then there's the closer, the Cracker Jack Sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jack. This menu will be gone at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com to find out more. Great food, good sports.
I'm Griffin Bass, and I have the extraordinary, mind-blowing, and life-affirming pleasure of being the new producer for the absolute funniest, smartest, and most handsome sports host in all of Baltimore. Wait a second, Glenn, I'm working for you, not Jeremy Kahn. If you're not listening to Glenn Clark Radio, here's what you're missing.
He's Coach Kevin Willard.
Glenn, thanks for having me.
Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Trey Mancini.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Mr. Marcus Williams, who's now with us.
Man, appreciate it. Happy to be on.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Ryan Mountcastle.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
Watch Glenn Clark Radio at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio or anytime on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
All right, we're back live here on the Bat Around on this dreary Saturday morning here in Baltimore. Just want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Simply the Bets and Weekend at Bookie. Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40 with FanDuel Sportsbook General Manager Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster as they join the guys every week to give you all the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports Brad Cronenthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. Boy, that is a mouthful of a read. That is a long.
It really is.
That's
it really
a long
is.
read. All right. So tune in for Simply the Bets and Weekend at Bookies every Tuesday for Simply the Bets and every other Thursday for Weekend at Bookies. Joining us on the show now, he has risen to fame with his book, We Own This City. That's the basis for the HBO miniseries of the same name. He just recently wrote an article for the Baltimore Banner with Tim Prudente that is stating that Louis Angelos is suing John Angelos and their mother, Georgia, saying that John has tried to grab complete control of the Orioles franchise. He is Justin Fenton, and he is live now on the Bat Around. Justin, thank you for taking some time for us this morning.
Sure. Good morning, guys.
So let's dive right into this. You co-wrote this article with Tim Prudente, and it basically is stating that John Angelos that he claims that he was supposed to have control with his brother of the Orioles franchise and the rest of the estate, that for that matter, once their father fell into ill health. But John has seemed to have grabbed complete and total control. How did this information come to light, and what kind of clarity can you give us on this situation?
Yeah, these accusations are being leveled in a lawsuit that Luis Angelos has brought against his brother and their mother, and really it brings to light a lot of, I guess, family secrets, Orioles team drama that really the public hasn't been privy to. It sheds light on why there have been personnel moves such as the firing of Brady Anderson. It talks about attempts to sell the team. It sort of lays out that their mother wants them to sell the team, and that Luis Angelos alleges that his brother's been misleading her. So there's a lot to unpack, and it's because it's a lawsuit, it's going to take a long time to play out.
Right.
I think one of the things I've been trying to emphasize is that I typically cover crime, and criminal cases might take 9 months to like a year and a half, sometimes longer to play out. Civil litigation takes forever, years and years. And with the team's lease running out next year, there's a lot of stuff up in the air with this.
Yeah, and you mentioned very early in the article, and this is a quote from the article, John intends to maintain absolute control over the Orioles, to manage, to sell, or, if he chooses, to move to Tennessee, where he has a home and where his wife's career is headquartered, without having to answer to anyone, according to the lawsuit. The glaring part in that snippet is, or if he chooses to move to Tennessee. There are a lot of fans who really do believe that the Orioles are trying to move the team to Nashville, and a lot of fans, after this article came out, Justin, they seem to be taking joy in being validated rather than kind of knee-knocking over the fact that maybe their franchise is moving. Is there any validity to the idea that this team could be moving?
Yeah, I think this is super important to stress because I saw that as well. A lot of people reacting to that line in particular. And it's a very tantalizing thing for Luis Angelos to have put in this lawsuit. But really, as he's through 49 pages of this document where he's unraveling all different types of things that have been going on over the years and citing text messages and emails and meetings, there is no accusation that John Angelos has tried to or even has floated the idea of moving the team. It absolutely plays into fans' fears and rumors that have been going around, but it's not something that he can point to as anything that's actually in the process of happening. More so, he's trying to raise the issue of, my brother's in complete control of the team and he could do anything that he wants to. And if he wanted to do this, he could do this, but there's nothing to point to that. And we haven't heard John Angelos' side of this either. I want to be clear. We're trying to get that. This is a one-sided lawsuit, and there will be a response at some point. We've reached out to John Angelos and his lawyers and just haven't heard anything back yet. But I think the fans need to know that there's nothing in the suit that points to the team there being anything in the process of moving the team.
Well, and I'm glad that you said that, because I was going to say it myself, that the article is one-sided in the sense that you're basically just describing the lawsuit from Luis Angelos' side of why he's coming forward with this lawsuit. And you mentioned that he said, even though there's no allegations that John has taken any steps to move this franchise, he's saying that he has all the power, so he could do that if he wanted to. And you cover crime and you cover lawsuits and stuff like that for the Baltimore Banner. How much is this? He wants a jury trial. He's trying to play on the emotions of people that could end up being in the jury that could vote in his favor because of the fact that he's playing on their emotions, saying that, well, he can move this franchise if I don't get what I want.
Yeah, I mean, anytime there's a lawsuit or dispute, the one side that's filing is going to put their best foot forward. They're going to present the facts as they see them. Certainly, there's another side to this, and hopefully that comes out sooner than later. But at the moment, I think what's interesting for me as a fan of the team, and I am a lifelong fan of the team, I always just sort of thought that this was the arrangement the family had worked out. That John was going to run the team and that Luis was going to run the law firm. And really, the suit, brings out that that is not everybody's on board with that. And in fact, he uses the word unilaterally over and over again about John sort of seizing control of the team and just pushing forward. There's a description of a meeting in which their mother sat them down for 90 minutes and had like a legal pad and was sort of saying, here's how things are going to go. And she had this plan to actually take the family out of the day-to-day public eye of running the team and create this board, and John would be the president, Lewis would be the vice president, and that John turned around and created a new leadership structure with him at the top and Lewis not involved at all. And so it really just it's clear that there's behind the scenes there's been a power struggle that we have not been privy to, and now it's spilled out into the public.
And you're mentioning the how he was going to make it. John was going to make himself has made himself the CEO and whatnot. The article makes it seem, and simply because all you're doing, you're reporting on what the lawsuit is from Luis Angelos' side. From my multiple readings of it, it seems as though Lewis is trying to paint John as the big bad wolf that wants to blow the Orioles' house down by doing whatever he wants with the team. It also makes it seem as though Georgia would rather sell the team, and probably because of what's going on right now, and that Lewis wants to be involved so that maybe he can sell the team because apparently John's nixed a couple of opportunities to sell.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the question about moving the team, far from trying to move the team or sell the team, John is painted as someone who very much wants to be in control of this team, does not want to sell it, has rebuffed efforts to sell, that there were people who were approached and there was discussions in 2020 that he kind of shut them down, that then they came back in May of 2020 and said, hey, really, we're interested in this, and that the family even tried to get a lawyer involved to try to talk to them and work it out, and that he just wasn't hearing it. So, yeah, he paints his brother as someone who, far from trying to get rid of the team, wants to control the team. It's sort of his time to run the franchise, and that's a point of dispute because there's other members of the family who have different opinions about how things have gone. It also sort of airs allegations about how the team is run, about he claims that John wants to surround himself with yes men only, and that's what led to the firing of Brady Anderson. And these are things that we definitely want to hear more about and hear John Angelos' side, but we just haven't gotten that yet.
And because you don't have John Angelos' side, you can only go based on what we've seen from Lou's lawsuit, and it seems as though Peter Angelos' wishes were that his two sons, split the entire state, from his law firm to the Orioles to whatever other assets they may have. And if John has secretly taken steps to have full control over the estate and all of the assets, what kind of a case does he have if he's going in defense of this, if he is going against Peter Angelos' wishes?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this stuff is going to get into some really complicated areas of trust law, and I mean, there's a discussion of documents that were signed or not signed, shifting of assets and LLCs and things like that. So, sort of the top line takeaway for Orioles fans is that there's a dispute over the future of the franchise, but ultimately in court. And again, his family is steeped in law. That's how the family fortune was gained. There was complicated asbestos litigation. Should this thing go to court, I think it ultimately might get into some really complicated matters. But again, that's going to play out over a long period of time. In the meantime, Luis Angelos has asked for preliminary injunctions. He wants to stop his brother from being able to make any drastic changes, such as selling the team or selling Masson. That Masson bid is a whole other thing. But these court orders could potentially impact sort of the crucial decisions that need to be made down the line as it pertains to the team's lease, any sale of the team, the sale of Masson. The courts are going to potentially have oversight of these types of things.
So if he goes to file for that injunction, what does that mean for the Orioles in the present day? Because they just passed these two bills, and one of the bills gives them $600 million to make upgrades to the stadium and the facility in general. Does that put any of that on hold, or can they still move forward with that?
Yeah, I think the injunction is designed to prevent any sort of drastic changes, in terms of selling, moving, whatever. I think it actually could end up being a positive thing for the team in the sense that not making any drastic changes means keeping the status quo. So there's an option for them to renew the lease for 5 years. It's entirely possible that because things are up in the air, that they might have no choice but to renew that option for the lease. So, in a way, this could actually stabilize things for the franchise. But again, it's very, very, very early on, and it remains to be seen whether this suit has legs, will be dismissed, or that they can reach some sort of a agreement to take this out of the public eye and settle things down.
And you were very clear on your Twitter handle that this is an ongoing and developing story. So this is certainly not the end of this. Is really just the beginning. I guess my final question for you is, at this point, and you said yourself you've been a lifelong fan, should Orioles fans be concerned?
My reading of it was that John Angelos sees himself as, his father ran the team for almost 3 decades, and it's his time. And I think that, the injunction, even if successful, is gonna call for no drastic changes. So I think that for now, while it's clear that there is some major dysfunction in the Angelos family and perhaps the upper ranks of the front office and ownership, I think that for people shouldn't fear any drastic things happening. This actually could be a stabilizing thing.
All right, that sounds good to me. Kind of calms down a little bit of my nerves after reading the article a couple of times that you wrote. And I really appreciate you, Justin, coming on and explaining these things because I'll be honest, when it comes to legalese and all these different things, I am a buffoon. So I appreciate you clarifying everything that you wrote in this article a couple of days ago. Before we let you go, I do want to congratulate you on the wild success of We Own the City. Just absolutely incredible stuff. So congratulations to you on that. And is there anything that we can plug for you moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely still trying to get the word out about the Baltimore Banner. You mentioned it, but I'm sure many, if not, well, I'm sure there are listeners who haven't heard of it yet. But basically, this is a new media outlet for Baltimore. It's a nonprofit news. I was at the Baltimore Sun for 17 years. But this is a news site that myself and many of my colleagues, as well as reporters from all over the country, are starting up. We're launching very soon. I'm not at liberty to say when, but I'll say very soon. And we reported this for the Banner through our sneak peek newsletter that we've been putting out, which is also accessible on the site. And I just ask people to, we're not going to have a lot of sports coverage early on. I think we're going to try to do some prep sports in the interim, but as far as local news and investigations, things like that, we're hoping that people will check us out. So thanks for letting me throw that in there.
No, absolutely. And thank you so much for coming on and clarifying the issues for us. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you down the line. All right?
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Take care. That was Justin Fenton of the soon-to-be-released Baltimore Banner, also the author of We Own This City, the basis for the HBO miniseries that is just... Have you watched it?
I haven't, but Stan's nephew's in it, obviously, so I probably
Josh
should.
Did not know until a couple of weeks ago that is Stan's nephew.
Yeah, I figured out this at the NFL draft, actually, was when I kind of put two pieces together. I was like, oh... You know what? That makes sense.
Stan's nephew, but
yeah.
So when you have a wife, when you have a girlfriend, when you have a boyfriend, whoever's listening,
okay,
you can you realize that you can't watch shows without them. There are shows that you can watch where it only interests you.
Uh-huh.
But if it interests both of you, you cannot watch shows without them. So there's 6 episodes. We just finished the 4th one the other day, and this show's been out for about a month now. We just finished the 4th episode the other day, and it's John Bernthal's fantastic. Josh Charles is fantastic. The whole show is fantastic, and I have unfortunately not had the opportunity to read the book yet. We do have the book. We just got the book, and I'm going to read it here soon.
Okay.
But from what I hear, the show is exactly the book.
Okay.
So that's cool. That's cool. There's no dramatizations or anything like
we'll
that.
We'll have to get Josh Charles on here at some point and talk his O's fandom.
I'm sure he'd be willing to come on. We had him on Glenn Clark Radio not too long ago, and he was
big O's
very knowledgeable.
Oh yeah,
very knowledgeable, which was cool. So special thank you to Justin Fenton. That was awesome.
Yeah,
and to all of you people out there that have been saying, "Oh, I told you so. They're moving the team. You owe me an apology." I don't owe you an apology. Justin Fenton just said this is actually probably a good thing.
There are a lot of people who think you owe them an apology for some reason, Paul.
I got blamed solely by one particular person who also claims I owe him an apology. I got blamed by this person for the wall in left field. Apparently, Paul Valley, the host of the Bat-Around, has ever-reaching power.
Congratulations on your new wall.
And I called up Mike Elias. I said, "Hey, man, here's what I want you to do. This guy, I want to piss him off. Move that wall back 30 feet. Raise it another 5 feet. Screw Trey Mancini out of home runs. Screw Ryan Mountcastle out of home runs. Screw the taxpayers. I want this wall." Paul Valley, host of the Bat-Around, has spoken. Make it happen. And that's what happened. That's what happened.
Beautiful wall.
That's what happened. I don't know if you know this, but I also have Eric DeCosto on. I have his here. And guys, Lamar Jackson's going to sign an 8-year, $16 million contract. He's going to play for $2 million a year. and lead the Ravens to multiple Super Bowls. I hope you guys know.
You better make him get some wide receivers. That should be your goal, Paul.
That's
call him up. Julio Jones is still a free agent. Let him know. Will Fuller. Will Fuller would be
Julio
great.
Jones' leg is going to fall off.
I mean,
we are really behind.
Yeah, we are.
We are really behind.
I could comment on some Ravens receivers.
It is now time. We're not going to break.
Okay.
Are we going
Never
to break?
mind. We might.
We're going to go to break after Orioles banter.
Okay.
We're going to do the payoff pitch around the league. Salvador Perez and A.J. Melendez drove in 3 runs apiece, and starter Jonathan Heasley allowed just 1 hit in 7 shutout innings as the Royals pounded the Orioles 8-1. Bryce Harper had 3 hits, and Rhys Hoskins slammed 2 home runs as the rejuvenated Phillies won their 8th straight, taking down the D-backs 7-5. It took 13 innings, but Oriole killer Jose Trevino put a hurting on another team for a change, delivering a pinch hit walk-off RBI single in the bottom of the frame to lead the Yankees past the Cubs 2-1. Nelson Cruz and Josh Bell combined for 6 hits and 6 runs batted in, including 2 home runs as Nationals crushed the Brewers 11-5. Jose Ramirez homered and doubled twice to back Tristan McKenzie's 6 innings of 2-run ball in the Guardians' 3-2 win over the A's. Bo Bichette, George Springer, and Lourdes Gurriel each homered, doubled, and drove in 2, while Jose Barrios spun 8 innings of 1-run ball in a Blue Jays 10-1 thrashing of the Tigers. Dansby Swanson had 3 hits and 2 RBIs to back 5 2/3 shutout innings from Spencer Striders as the Braves extended their winning streak to 9 games with a 4-2 victory over the Pirates. The Twins got 3 home runs, 7 hits, 5 RBIs, and 5 runs scored from their 1-3 hitters as they routed the Rays 9-4. Not at a 3 in the 8th, the White Sox scored 5 runs in the bottom half, highlighted by a 2-out, 2-run home run off the bat of shortstop Danny Mendick to take care of the Rangers 8-3. Jazz Chisholm and Jesus Aguilar each homered twice and drove in 3 apiece to lead the Marlins past the Astros 7-4. Despite not one player from either team recording an RBI, the Cardinals scored twice on 2 separate errors to squeak out a victory over the Reds 2-0. Paul Goldschmidt walked in the victory to extend his on-base streak to 46 consecutive games. Brandon Nimmo and Mark Canha each had 2 hits and 3 runs driven in, and every player in the lineup had at least 1 hit as the Mets handed the Angels their 15th loss in 16 games on Friday, 7-3. Joe Musgrove pitched 6 shutout innings with 8 Ks to lower his Major League leading ERA to 1.50 and improved this to 7-0 with a Padres 9-0 victory over the Rockies. J.D. Martinez snapped a 19-game homerless streak on Friday to lead the Red Sox over the Mariners 4-3. And finally, Jock Peterson and Brandon Ruff combined for 5 hits and 5 RBIs to lead the Giants over the rival Dodgers 7-2. The same Jock Peterson that got smacked in the face by Tommy Pham.
That's a great story. You know, that is like one of the better baseball stories. I should have sounded off on that. That was so fun. I don't know. It was funny.
Wasn't he like the commissioner of their baseball, fantasy football league?
So I think they were in a league that was commissioned by Mike Trout, is what I heard. And then Jock had some issue with, I don't know. It was a whole
like
issue
a trade or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Shut up about it. And so
I don't know.
Trent, was it Trent Grisham or Tommy Pham?
Tommy Pham.
Pham.
Yeah.
Tommy Pham smacked the ever-loving piss out of Jock Peterson.
Like,
Jock Peterson
I don't know,
has a smackable face. Like if you look at Jock Peterson with his bleach blonde, top of the head mohawk. I guess that's where all mohawks are.
I could see you with one of those, honestly.
I had a mohawk for a bit.
I knew it.
Not for a bit, but I did have one at one point or two. But with and that face. He's just a smackable guy.
Oh, I know he is.
I feel like Tommy Pham probably had a lot of fans in that fantasy football league. They were like, man, I wanted to smack that guy so bad. Thank you.
I heard someone say Mike Trout is the worst commissioner of all time. Anyway,
really?
Moving on. Yeah, they said he's horrible. Anyway, moving on to the Saturday games we have on tap today. The Rays, the 34-24 Rays against the Twins. Shane Baz against Chichi Gonzalez, 2:10 at Target Field. The Rangers and the White Sox, Martin Perez versus Lucas Giolito, 2 pitchers having a really good year at Guaranteed Rate Field at 2:10 p.m. At 2:15, the Reds and the Cardinals, Hunter Green, the rookie, against the veteran Adam Wainwright. D-backs, Madison Bumgarner and the Phillies' Zach Wheeler will go to battle 4:05 at Citizens Bank Park. The Brewers and the Nats, 2 lefties, Eric Lauer, Patrick Corbin. Corbin looking to get back on track. Lauer looks to continue his excellent season so far. 4:05 at Nats Park. Your Baltimore Orioles with Tyler Wells on the hill at 4:10 at Kauffman Stadium will face off against Daniel Lynch, the lefty, and the Kansas City Royals. Athletics and Guardians, Frankie Montas versus Zach Plesac, 4:10 at Progressive Field. Ryan Feltner His Rockies go against Nick Martinez and his Padres. Padres look to keep going. I mean, they're playing a lot better than I think some people expected, 36-22. That'll be 4:10 at Petco Park. Blue Jays, they'll start Kevin Gausman, who's been one of the better pitchers in baseball this year, against Bo Brieski with the Tigers. Bo looking to get back on track. Gausman looks to keep continuing a good season. 4:10 at Comerica Park. Zach Thompson and Charlie Morton, the Pirates and the Braves. 4:10 at Truist Park. Marlins and the Astros, lefties Braxton Garrett and Framber Valdez. Valdez with a 2.61 ERA. Braxton Garrett a 10.8 ERA. 4:10 at Minute Maid Park. The legendary Clayton Kershaw against Sam Long as the Dodgers face off against the rival Giants. 7:15 at Oracle Park. That's a must-watch game. Really good one there. Cubs and the Yankees, Matt Swarmer versus Jordan Montgomery. 7:15 at Yankee Stadium. Cubs looking to get back on track. The Yankees, I believe they have the best record in baseball at 42-16. Very, very difficult team to beat. Incredible offense. Mets and the Angels tonight. Carlos Carrasco and the budget Shohei Ohtani, Michael Lorenzen. 10:07 at Angels Stadium. Rockies and Padres. Kyle Freeland and Mackenzie Gore will go head-to-head, the two lefties, 10:10 at Petco Park. And finally, that's a game 2 of that doubleheader, by the way. And finally, Red Sox and Mariners over at T-Mobile Park at 10:10. Michael Wacha, who has a 1.99 ERA. 1.99 ERA somehow this year against George Kirby, the rookie, as the Mariners look to get back on the track and the Red Sox look to move up out of 4th place.
So let me ask you something, man. You mentioned Kevin Gausman.
Okay.
And he's one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. And he is.
He has been
one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. If he wins a Cy Young Award, right? If he wins a Cy Young Award, having Jake Arrieta have already won the Cy Young Award, what does that say about the Orioles?
It says their player development is drastically different now than it was back then. I think that's the takeaway for it. Their player development back in the early 2010s was, safe to say, terrible.
Yeah.
And
you had
especially pitching development.
They said the best pitching prospect since Roger Clemens and Dylan Bundy, and he's a middling starter now. And then Kevin Gausman was the number 4 overall pick, and he was good for the Orioles.
Yeah.
He wasn't great. He's been great since he was bad for the Braves. But he didn't he go to Cincinnati for 1 year? No, he was in Cincinnati.
He was in Cincinnati, Kevin Gausman.
He was good in Cincinnati. He was great in San Francisco. He's great in Toronto. As soon as Jake Arrieta left Baltimore, as soon as he stepped on a mound for the Cubs, he was phenomenal for 5 years. I
was at a game yesterday. I was there alone and talking to another guy, and I was saying Dylan Bundy is the greatest high school pitcher of all time. He's up. I mean, he might not be the greatest, but he's up there. I mean, the guy had like a .15 ERA or something crazy like that. And he would strike out like every guy. I mean, it was insane. He was throwing 99. Nobody could touch him. Never became anything really. And Gausman, I don't think was as big of a prospect. And this was kind of, I guess, a little bit before I was paying attention to prospects.
He was
as
the
much
Friday
as I do
night
now.
starter at LSU.
He was, SEC. Yeah, and he was a big player. But I think Dylan Bundy is arguably one of the greatest pitching prospects of all time. And Bundy hasn't really had a lot of success, to be fair, to the Orioles. But Arrieta, Gausman, there's a number of guys who have gone other places. Even a guy like Zach Davies has gone somewhere else. And
Josh Hader.
Josh Hader, sure, and has had a lot of success. So, yeah, it's definitely, there's a long list of Orioles that have had success elsewhere, and hopefully that continues not to be the trend.
You're praying that it's all good from here. With guys like Grayson Rodriguez.
Well, unfortunately, it won't be.
And DL Hall last night, man, it was a weird stat line, right? 4 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 runs, 1 earned, 8 strikeouts. And I feel like his stat line is that I think he had 3 walks.
It is.
Every time you see him pitch, it's 4 2/3 innings, about 3 hits, about 3 walks, and anywhere from 7 to 9 strikeouts. Right?
Yeah, that seems to be the kind of
and anywhere from 1 to 3 runs. He's not dominating. He's striking out a lot of guys. He's not dominating down at AAA. He's not getting hit around, but he's got a 4.10 ERA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't you think he should be doing a little bit better than that?
I think at his age and for his experience level, yeah, I do. But, we know the present concerns with him as far as staying in the starting rotation and the longevity that is there with a guy that throws hard and a guy that has plus stuff. And generally, if you look at the guys, and I've said this before, but generally, if you look at the guys across the league who have plus stuff, they're in the back end of bullpens. And the guys who have the best control and command are at the back end of rotations. And if you can combine them both, then you're at the front end of a rotation. But that's going to be the struggle, I guess, for DL Hall, is that if he can combine command and his excellent stuff. And I think he can. It's just putting it together consistently and being that guy who doesn't walk people and, simply keeps guys off the base paths. And I think that's going to be the most important thing for him.
I'll tell you, as much as I would love to see DL Hall here right now, if I got an alert on my phone that says DL Hall will make his next start for the Baltimore Orioles, I'd be thrilled. But I'm totally okay with them keeping him in the minor leagues until he puts together 5, 6, 7 dominant outings in a row.
I want to see, too, like 7 innings. I want to see him actually
He's not going to get there at any point this year.
He won't because they don't want him to.
Right.
But I would love to see it. Like you said, it's not going to happen. It's unlikely. But it's just the fact that he hasn't pitched a lot of those 7-inning games in his career. I'm not sure he's pitched more than, 2, 3?
Well,
probably in his whole minor league career.
I'll tell you what's going to end up happening is if and when he does get called up this year, and I think he will.
Oh, yeah, he will this year.
At some point. I think if and when he gets called up, he's going to piggyback. He's either going to start a game, and then you're going to have Keegan Aiken come in after him, or he's going to come in the 5th inning after Tyler Wells start and pitch the 5th, 6th, 7th, and maybe 8th innings, depending on how he does. And I think that's how they're going to use him. I do firmly believe that the Orioles, it's in their plans to have him be a part of their starting rotation from day one next year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that he's completely going to stay healthy and that he has the ability to throw enough innings. Like, if you're not going to obviously get 200 out of him, but if you can get 130, then I think you'd be happier.
This year or next year?
No, next year. Then I think you'd be happier. I don't think he's going to get there this year. I don't think that's possible. But if you can get that out of him, then that's certainly an upgrade over the less than 100 inning seasons he's had for the recent past. And I think that he's a guy who will get called up this year. He'll be here. But like you said, it's going to be in smaller roles. I don't think he's going to pitch a ton, and it's going to be, probably a lot of piggybacking coming out of the bullpen. And frankly, the Orioles are going to have to find a time when they have a drastic need in the rotation, and they will get there at some point. They will have a drastic need, and he will be the guy who will end up filling that hole.
Well, and yeah, you look at him this year. Through 2 months, he's got 34 innings pitched.
Yeah.
Right? So what's he realistically going to get to? 90?
Yeah,
maybe
90, 100.
Maybe 100?
Right.
I think if he gets to 100, you can bump him up 50 innings next year.
Okay.
I think you can bump, especially he's already surpassed his innings total from last year. And if he's going to do what we anticipated, if they're going to do with him what we anticipate they're going to do with him, he's probably going to approach 100 innings this year.
Yeah.
And that's an upgrade of over 60 innings from last year. So, close to 70. So, you look at it, I can see them saying, okay, we want to put you in our starting rotation starting next year with no limitations, and or maybe you have 5 innings or 80 pitches, whichever you reach first, for the first month. And then they kind of take the gloves off, the kid gloves off after that. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I do think that he has an opportunity to advance past 130 innings next year, but he's got to get through the season healthy. He's got to show that he deserves a spot in that rotation next year, and then we'll see what happens after that. And let's talk about the Orioles rotation, okay? Zimmermann last night, 4 2/3 innings, pitched 10 hits, 7 earned runs. People were calling him an ace when John Means went down, and he has been just awful for the last month. For the last month, he's just been absolutely awful. He had a 2-start stretch where he gave up 9 home runs.
Yeah.
What's going on with this dude?
Yeah, the fastball doesn't play. I think that's the first thing. Guys sit on it because it's like 91, and he has a very, very difficult time locating it. And it doesn't move much. It's basically pretty flat at 91. That's like batting practice for these guys. I mean, these are Major League Baseball players, and even though the Royals are not, a great team, they teed off it last night. I mean, they sat on it, and then the changeup too. The changeup you saw in the beginning of the year, a lot of arm side break down and away. It was looking good. It was getting located in the spots that he wanted it to be, and then now it's like hanging up in the zone. It's right over the middle of the plate, sitting at 85, and it's just looping in there. And look, again, these are Major League hitters. They're not going to miss an 85-mile-an-hour. We call it a batting practice fastball right down the middle. That's what it is. And when your changeup's not breaking, it's pretty flat. There's nothing much happening. It's basically floating in there. These guys are going to crush it. That's what's happening, unfortunately. So the breaking stuff still looks pretty good to me. The curveball hasn't been bad, but it's just a fastball changeup, and that's the way that he pitches is fastball changeup, and that's kind of his thing. And when they're both off, and when he's not throwing them with any kind of success, these guys are just going to tee off it, and that's kind of what's happening right now. It's just home run ball when he's on the mound. And
then you look at Jordan Lyles, 2-2, 3.65 ERA in 6 May starts. 0-1 with a 9 ERA in 2 June starts. Even his last start in May wasn't great.
Yeah.
Gave up 4 runs in 5 innings or something like, or 4 and a third innings. We kind of expected this. He's going to get back to a nice stretch where he pitches really well for 2 to 4 outings. And then he'll have another stretch where he has two bad starts in a row.
It's kind of what he does.
It's what he does. Between him, Zimmermann's failings, Bradish, rookie still trying to find his way.
Yeah.
2 quality starts in his first 3 outings, none since. 2 earned runs each of his last 2 starts, but he's failed to get out of the 5th in either of those starts with the pitch counts of 80 and 105. Dean Kramer, look, he had strike 3 with 2 outs in the first inning of his start the other day. And pitch was called a ball for a walk. The next guy hits a 3-run homer. Gave up nothing in 3 and third innings. After that, he had great control in his rehab stint. He didn't walk anybody after that 2-out walk in the first inning.
Yeah.
Is the key for him just to throw strikes?
I think it is, but I think Dean Kramer can run himself into submissions with that too, because there's been a lack of quality strikes from him over the years that we've seen. His cutter, especially when he started throwing that more and more in the 2021 season, the cutter would just kind of float over the middle of the plate and run right into the barrel. Like it would start inside to righties and then come back and it'd be right in the middle of the zone, right in the middle of the barrel. And that's where guys would kind of just destroy it. And you saw the left field wall give up plenty of home runs to righties off Dean Kramer because the cutter would just basically hang in there, would come almost back to the barrel, and he wasn't throwing it enough outside. He's get more across the zone instead of right in the middle of it. And the 12-6 is something it was very, very good in 2020 when we saw it. The 12-6 was his best pitch probably. Hanging it a ton in 2021. I mean, it was just sitting up there. Guys were just teeing off it again. And the fastball, it's a pretty average fastball. There's nothing you're really excellent about it. He can touch 95.
He generally says 92 and 94.
And there's a little arm side run on it. It's not an awful fastball. It's just not. I wouldn't say it's drastically above average. But you look at his pitches. It's just about throwing quality strikes for him, because I don't think just simply throwing strikes with his cutter and his curveball is going to be enough. He needs to be able to locate them, and I think that's throwing strikes is definitely a part of it. He definitely walks way too many guys for my liking, and obviously those are.
But this year he hasn't.
This year he hasn't so far, right? After one start and then what he did in the minors. So we'll see what he ends up doing over the next few starts, and if he can throw quality strikes, then he'll be all right. His stuff isn't incredible. It's maybe slightly above average, if not average. So he's just got to make sure he can put it where he wants it to.
Now, Tyler Wells, probably the most consistent of all the Orioles starters, believe it or not. 2-4, 3.78 ERA, a .9 B WAR, which leads all Orioles starters. 8 of 11.
Well, that's depressing.
8 of 11. I mean, we're only 2 months into the season.
True.
You know what I mean? That's
a
3-win player.
I was even looking up Michael Lorenzen, who I was just talking about, who's starting today. He's like 1.1 WAR already for the Angels, and he hasn't been that great. I mean, he's a 3.70 ERA, which is fine, but it's just.
Well, I mean, Wells also isn't getting deep into games. But
fair.
8 of his 11 starts, 2 earned runs or less.
Fair.
1.7 walks per 9, which is really good. Just 5.5 Ks per 9, which probably affects his WAR as well.
That's not great.
And this is after averaging more than 10 strikeouts per 9 last year. There's going to be some of that when you move from the bullpen to the rotation, because you can really unleash when you're in the bullpen, because you only have an inning, maybe 2. In the rotation, you got to save your arm. Right? But, I mean, this is a guy. It's crazy to think that after the first start that we saw, that this has been their most consistent starting rotation piece.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when John Means goes down, that's kind of one of the things that ends up happening as far as a butterfly effect goes. And you look at Dean Kramer, we don't know how he's going to be.
That's not what butterfly effect means, but continue.
Well, I'm saying that it once one thing happens, then other things like spiral and happen after that. It's kind of maybe that's not the right
Pandora's
term for it.
box is
sure. We'll call it that. That's it. When John Means goes down, your most reliable starter and a guy that you expected to be the ace of the rotation, other guys have to step up, and I think that's what we're seeing from Tyler Wells. And Bruce Zimmermann, we know the struggles. We know that he's been in a bad stretch as of late. Hopefully he gets back on track, but Tyler Wells is a guy who he's not pitching incredibly well, but he's pitching just well enough to be, I guess, the best pitcher in this rotation right now. Kyle Bradish, he's a rookie. We don't really know what we can expect from him, and there's some things that he's had some serious issues with this season as well. So it's not
control
being right, and we never expected Jordan Lyles to be a top of the rotation piece either. So I guess it doesn't shock me that Tyler Wells is the best pitcher in this rotation right now. But maybe you expected Jordan Lyles to be. I don't know, but it's certainly not a shock.
You lose John Means, Bruce Zimmermann, the way he started and the way he's pitching now. It's night and day.
Jinx.
Yeah, there you go. Kyle Bradish, you think that he has the stuff to be a quality big league starter, but he has to figure it out first. You look at the bullpen, 5 regulars with a B-WAR of 1 or higher.
Yeah.
5th best bullpen in the American League, 6th in Major League Baseball. But the question becomes, if the starting rotation continues on this trend, what happens to the bullpen?
Yeah, that's going to be the problem. Overuse is going to be the key term here, because even guys like Ciano Perez, I mean, I've noticed even more so lately that he's been used a lot more, coming into games and situations that Brandon Hyde probably doesn't want him in games at. So it's concerning. I talked about before, DL Hall is going to become a necessity eventually, because you're going to need arms, and you're simply going, if he stays healthy, he'll be here at some point, because you need arms. Like guys like Logan Gillespie and all these guys that have come up.
Adam Voth.
Right? Oh, Voth is horrible.
I remember watching him pitch for the Nationals and being like, how does this guy keep getting starts?
He is terrible. I hope he doesn't last too long on the Orioles, because he had some struggles with the Nationals, but maybe he turns it around. Who knows? Chris Holt can help him out. We'll see. But point is here is that they're going to need more arms. Waiver claims will probably be a thing, and a lot of guys promoted for the minors.
All right, we got to catch a break here before we get Bob Phelan from the On the Verge podcast. Just want to remind you, today's show is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino in Hotel Maryland, which is the best place to be for the playoffs and all of the big upcoming events. Bet on every sport with 61 self-service kiosks, open 24/7, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. Tonight, Glover Teixeira defends his belt against Yuri Prohaska in the main event of UFC 275. Catch all of the action in the FanDuel Sportsbook while you cash in on all the many prop bets available. Reserve your spot for tonight's fights by emailing events@sportssocialmd.com.
Are you ready, soccer fans? This summer, the English Premier League returns to Baltimore. Arsenal, Everton, square off in the Charm City match, July 16th, under the lights at M&T Bank Stadium, home of the Baltimore Ravens. This is your only opportunity to take in a Premier League match this summer in the Mid-Atlantic region. Individual and group tickets are on sale at BaltimoreRavens.com.
Baseball is back, and so is the spring seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with our popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and take a bite out of the Crunch Burger, topped with home run sauce, white American cheese, and house-made chips. It also features irresistible options like a baseball-cut sirloin with blue cheese, grilled shrimp with garlic butter, and a strawberry salmon salad. And then there's the closer, the Cracker Jack Sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jack. This menu will be gone at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com to find out more. Great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman, diving into where his passion for baseball and for catching comes from, and how he uses that passion to elevate those around him in the Orioles organization. Also inside, Bo Smolka takes a look at how the Ravens' 2021 draft picks can make progress in year 2, and Glenn Clark offers a very unique tribute to former rival Mike Krzyzewski that all Maryland fans can appreciate. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Hey Birdland families, this Father's Day, join the O's in celebrating Dad at the Yard as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays Sunday, June 19th at 1:35. Go above and beyond by treating Dad to a fun-filled day with the entire family. Make sure to get to the ballpark early because the first 10,000 fans ages 15 and over will receive an Orioles golf visor. Dad's Day done right this year with the O's. Don't wait until the last minute when planning Father's Day. Secure your tickets now at Orioles.com/tickets.
All right, welcome back to the Bat Around here on a Saturday morning in Baltimore. I want to remind you today's show is brought to you by Press Box's Glenn Clark Radio, which is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. You can watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely, legendary baseball voice Peter Gammons, and Royals pitcher and former Terp Jose Cuas. Find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com. It's been a really great show. Stan had a great segment today. Justin Fenton was fantastic, clarifying the lawsuit article between that is being brought forth by Luis Angelos against his brother and his mother. Now we're waiting to get Bob Phelan from the On the Verge podcast on the show to talk some Orioles prospects, and namely Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, who have been absolutely tearing the cover off the ball down there for the Norfolk Tides, pushing their way towards their inevitable Major League debut, whether it happens later this year or happens next year. I'm more inclined to think it happens next year unless these guys both hit 400 at AAA. But with that in mind, we do have, from the On the Verge podcast, Bob Phelan joining the show today. Bob, good morning. Thank you for taking some time for us. How are you today?
Great to be here, as always. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's our pleasure. I just got started talking about Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg, both promoted to Norfolk for this week. Gunnar, home run in his first at-bat, 2 hits and a walk the first game. Westberg, 2 hits the first game, 3 hits the second game, including a home run. He had another hit last night. Gunnar's back down to 250, but we're talking about 3 games. Westberg still hitting 500 through those first 3 games. Talk to us about these players and how special they are.
Yeah, you can't ask for a better start than what they got off to here, making their AAA debuts. Gunnar Henderson, he's batting 250, but hit that home run. He's also got 4 walks already and only 2 strikeouts, I believe. So continuing to see that walk to strikeout rate continue where it was at AA, which I'll start with him at 20 years old. It's just incredible what he's been able to do this year. You know, we thought he was great last year when he had a strikeout rate near 30% and a decent walk rate, but he's gone ahead and dropped that strikeout rate in half and doubled his walk rate from last year, continuing to have power. At 20 years old, he's 9 months younger than anybody else in AAA.
Wow.
And then, doesn't matter which league you look at. So, yeah, he's looking like he could possibly be another top 10 prospect in all of baseball for the Orioles right now, the way they've developed him. And then Jordan Westberg, you're just seeing what kind of expected. He did have a pretty good slump there for 2 weeks to start the season, but he's heated up and been the guy we thought he would be. Polished college hitter out of the SEC, hits the ball hard, can hit the ball for power, takes walks, can play a great defense at second, third, or short. And actually with Gunnar Henderson, as much as he's improved at the plate, defensively he looks just as much improved out there at shortstop and third base. Looks like he could be a plus glove on the left side of the infield as well.
And with Gunnar, and you mentioned his age now, he's 9 months younger than any other player in AAA. You know, you look at these Orioles prospects, and Ryan Mountcastle debuted at 23, and that was on the young side. When you look at the rest of the prospects, Rutschman, 24 already. Heston Kjerstad probably won't be here till he's 25 years old. And then you look around the rest of the league, and you see guys 19, 20, 21 years old making all-star teams for their respective teams. Is Gunnar putting himself into that echelon where we could see him maybe even in Baltimore at the end of this year if he does what he's been doing?
I mean, it'd be hard to keep him off of the Major League roster by the last month or so of the season if he continues to do what he's doing. And I'm sure he'll have some growing pains, but I thought he'd have some growing pains at AA to start the year and wouldn't make it to AAA till maybe the last couple months of the year. So, performance dictates all. And if he just continues to mash the ball and he's not being, exposed or if he's not learning and he needs to learn at the next level, which would be the major leagues, then I don't see how they could keep him down.
Now, we know that Mike Elias plays things close to the vest, one, and that two, he does what he's going to do no matter what everybody else calls for. And that's been evident since day one here. Are we looking at the potential, and how likely do you think it is that Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westbrook make up half the Orioles infield on opening day next season?
I think it's a pretty good chance of that. I think if anything, Gunnar's looking so good that he might be a guy that you try to keep down, just like they did. Well, who knows what they would have done with Adley if he didn't get hurt, but maybe that's a scenario where you keep him down a little bit to try to gain that extra year. But I think it's a very good chance that they are both on the opening day lineup to start 2023 for sure.
Now, we talked with Keith Law on Glenn Clark Radio a couple of months ago. He said he could envision Joey Ortiz being the Orioles starting shortstop the second half of this season. Yet Gunnar and Westbrook both made it to AAA before him. He's slashing 217, 294, 394 with a 643 OPS entering Friday. What are your thoughts on his season, and does he even have a future in Baltimore?
I think he still has a future. He's coming off that shoulder injury. I'm sure it's taken some time to get back from that. He plays incredible defense at shortstop. Just might be a couple of years to try to get that back to where it was looking like, last year before he got hurt. And worst case, I think he could be a trade chip or potentially just a really good glove to have on the bench for defensive replacement. I'm not giving up on him yet after just 2 months or so.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Now another guy, 22-year-old, signing out of Cuba, Cesar Prieto. He started out at Aberdeen. All he did was hit. He's moved up to Bowie, and with the exception of the last couple of games, really all he's done is hit. Do you think that we see him in AAA at some point this year, and where do you profile him as a big leaguer moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. We knew he could hit based off his numbers in Cuba. It didn't look like he had much power, but clearly since he came over to America, he was bulking up big time, and he clearly added some power to that frame there. Was too good for high A. I could see maybe if Jordan Westberg or Gunnar Henderson get a look-see at the end of the year. I mean, the AAA season goes like 3 or 4 weeks longer than the rest of minor league baseball, so maybe he could get up to AAA, during that period of time. But I would expect him to stay in AA, for the next 2 or 3 months at least.
And is this a guy who profiles? They've been playing him at shortstop and at second base, but he profiles more as a second baseman, correct?
Yeah, he's not going to be a shortstop at the major league level. I don't think he has the arm for it, but he could be a solid second baseman for sure. A bat first, second baseman, batting out of the left side, which in Camden Yards now is a good thing to have a lefty hitter for sure.
Yeah, we're going to keep with the bats here before we talk about the pitching. I want to talk about Colton Cowser. 3 for 3 with 2 doubles on Thursday. He was batting .251 entering Friday. Did not play last night. Slow start to his first full pro season. But it seems like the bat might be starting to come around. What are your thoughts on Colton Cowser? Have you seen signs from him that he is a player that was worthy of being drafted 5th overall by the Orioles last year?
Yeah, I think you see flashes of that. It's slow start, disappointing start. No matter how you slice it, I'm sure he would say the same thing. But he came out of the gate so hot after being drafted last year. I feel like he kind of set the expectations a little bit higher than he would have been if he would have just had like an average start to his career. But he's shown signs of getting out of the strikeout hole that he was digging himself in to start the year. I think he's only struck out like 12% of the time over his last X amount of games. I think it's like 3 weeks or so. John Muley had a great piece in his newsletter about how he's just adjusting to the grind of the professional lifestyle of getting enough sleep and, playing every single day. So I think coming from a small school like Sam Houston State, it might just be more of an adjustment, but it looks like he's waking up and starting to be the guy that we thought he could be.
Yeah, and I think that it's important that you said he got off to such a hot start last year that it was hard not to have these high expectations for him, and everybody struggles at some point in their career. So hopefully that he is showing signs of busting out and he can finish the season strong. Kobe Mayo, ridiculous power. Some people were saying that he could be the number one prospect number one offensive prospect in all of baseball this time next year. but he's batting just 237. He's a young kid. He's, 19, 20 years old. Can the hit tool improve enough for him to be an impact player at the next level?
Oh, for sure. I mean, a guy his age, he's around the same age of all these guys that are struggling in Delmarva that, that we've been on the podcast preaching patience with because they're so young. They need time to develop. First full professional season and full season ball. And the same's true of Kobe Mayo. He's just doing it at a level higher, and he's got 10 home runs. His walk rate has been getting higher over the last few weeks. I think he's just adjusting. He's a very young kid, plays good defense, great arm, huge power. Maybe he's not getting off to the kind of start would make you say, okay, this is a top 50 prospect in baseball at this point, but there's no doubt in my mind that he's got the skills to get there. This time next year, you could be looking at him similar to how we're looking at Gunnar Henderson right now.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge thing for the Orioles if that is the case. Now let's move over to the pitching side of things. And look, man, the Orioles took a huge blow last week when we found out that Grayson Rodriguez had a lat strain, and we find out on Sunday it's a grade 2 lat strain, which means he might be back in September. But let's be honest, Bob, he's not going to pitch again this year. Even if he does come back this year, we're not going to see him in Baltimore. We know he should, but will he break camp next year in the Orioles opening day rotation?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with that. He's definitely not pitching in the majors this year. I thought there might have been a chance that he came back if it was grade 1, but once it was grade 2, I think the best hope is he can come back, get some innings at AAA in September, maybe go to the Arizona Fall League just to try to build his pitch count, innings count up for 2023. But I do think he'll break camp with the team in 2023. I think Mike Elias was maybe he should have pulled the trigger, started to earlier, but I really think that was his last minor league start. And Mike Elias was bummed that it happened. So I think let's get him out to start 2023 because no more wasting bullets with this guy. He's got electric stuff. Let's see what he can do at the major league level.
Now, and look, you're not a doctor, right? But people have said, Elias should have brought him up before then. This wouldn't happen. This happened. I feel like with stuff like this, if it happened, it was going to happen, correct? Or is this one of those things where maybe if he had been with major league coaches and on a major league staff, maybe they could have prepped him a little bit better or had him doing different things with his mechanics to the point where that wouldn't have happened. What are your thoughts on that?
I just, butterfly effect, who knows what would have happened if he would have been up. But to me, it's like fans will criticize him if, they're not letting him stretch out, not letting him go 6-7 innings, not letting him get close to 100 pitches. And then, maybe he should have been pulled an inning earlier. It wouldn't happen. I mean, this stuff, it happens. It happened. It's not his arm. So that's the important thing. He will be fine long term. It is a bummer, but I just don't think you can blame the organization for what happened.
Yeah, no, I don't think that you can either. I think that this is just one of those things. It was a hot day. He's trying to prove that he belongs at the big league level because, frankly, he could have been up well before then. And so maybe it's a case where he's overthrowing and he hurts himself, and what can you do about that? DL Hall,
sure.
he had a similar issue, but it was with the elbow strain last year, where I will maintain that this was a guy who was just trying to prove that he can strike out the world, and he was probably overthrowing, and that's how he hurt the elbow. It's been a mixed bag at AAA for him. Like, for example, last night he goes 4 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 3 runs, 1 earned, and 8 strikeouts. And that seems to be a typical line for DL Hall these days. Strikes out a ton of batters, but he hasn't had one of those dominant with a capital D outings for Norfolk. Do you expect him to get an extended look at Norfolk and to the point where he has 5, 6, 7 dominant starts in a row before the Orioles really consider bringing him up?
Yeah, I think his numbers are a little bit worse than how he's pitched if you just watch the games. Like, the stuff is great. When he misses, it's competitive misses. We had Justin Ramsey on the show, and he talked about that. He might still be walking batters, but they're more competitive at bats. The misses are close, and that's what he wants to see. So, yeah, I mean, I think he got up to, 77 pitches last night.
Mm-hmm.
I could see another month in AAA before they bring him up. The only question I have is how many innings are they going to let him go? That's kind of been in the back of my mind, but the stuff is great. Maybe he's just getting used to the AAA ball, which is the major league ball, different than AA and lower, so which is a weird thing. But yeah, I think he's just getting adjusted, getting back to pitching. And like you said, he was trying to strike everybody out last year, and he pretty much did. But this year, it looks like he's sitting 98 easy and not overthrowing whatsoever. It's coming out pretty easy.
Bob, a guy that we talked about a lot on the show preseason was Zach Peak, a guy that we thought, along with John Pinto, would really take a step forward this year and assert himself as one of the best pitchers in the Orioles organization. Now, I haven't heard a ton about Zach Peak, and maybe I haven't been paying good enough attention, but what has Zach Peak done this year, and has he taken a step forward from last year, or has he taken a step back?
I think he's pretty much maintained the status quo from last year. He had a bit of a setback where he hit the injured list for 2 or 3 weeks, like a month ago, and that kind of put a little hiccup in his season. But he looked great his last time out. He's got an ERA in like the mid upper threes. Not striking out as many batters as he did last year, but he looks good to me. I mean, he's the first time in Double-A. He's a fiery competitor on the mound. I'd probably keep his prospect status quo.
Now, Jean Pinto, who Zach just mentioned, excuse me, 2 earned runs or less in 8 of his 11 outings, but an ERA of 5.25 because he gave up 4 earned runs in 2 innings in his first outing of the season, and then 6 earned runs in a May 9th outing. What level prospect would you rate him as? Is this somebody who can kind of make some waves here with this organization?
Yeah, I still have him as a top 20 prospect in the system. If you look at his Fangraphs page, you can see that his batting average for balls in play is like almost 400. He's a ground ball pitcher, so that can happen, but he's striking guys out. He's still just 21 years old in high A, so similar to Kobe Mayo, he's definitely young for the level. I think his xFIP is in the 3s, his FIP is in the 3s, so it's been a little bit unlucky, but I think we'll continue to see him improve throughout the year, maybe end the year in Double-A potentially.
It just really goes to show how impressive what Gunnar Henderson is doing. The fact that he's not even 21, he's in AAA, and you just said that Jean Pinto at 21 years old is young for high A. It's just absolutely bananas. And then the final pitcher I want to ask you about before we play a little game with you before you go is Carter Ballmer. 3 pro appearances, 9 innings pitched, no earned runs, 4 hits, 4 walks, 15 strikeouts. Not a bad start to his career following Tommy John surgery. Have you gotten eyes on this kid? And if so, what have you seen? He did refer to himself as a more athletic Zach Greinke.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of checks out. I haven't seen him in person, but I've watched him on minor league TV whenever I think he's only starting Wednesdays, doing like 3 innings each start, which is fine coming back from the injury. But yeah, he looks way too good for low A. I would not be surprised if he's doing Wednesday starts in Aberdeen pretty soon. That's great.
That's awesome here. It was a real bummer when we found out that in the instructs he had to go get Tommy John surgery. So the fact that he's bounced back and the Orioles gave him overslot money to get him to decommit from college to come pitch for them out of high school, to have the success he's having to start his career, it's really, really great to see. So I look forward to hearing from you in the future about how he's looking down there for sure. Now, before we let you go, Bob, we do play a game here on the Battleground called Take the Rake. Have you played this game with us before?
I have not.
Okay. Well, here's how we play it. Zach and I each take a player that we think is going to have the best offensive week for the Orioles, and then by next week's show, we figure out who won. When we have a guest on in the 11:40 time slot, we have the guest play with us. The only rule is that you can't take a player who was taken before. So if we had a guest on last week who had taken, say, Ryan Mountcastle, you wouldn't be allowed to take Ryan Mountcastle. Just like I took Cedric Mullins 2 weeks ago in our last show, I can't take him this week, and Zach can't take Austin Hayes. That's really the only rule for the game. Okay. I can tell by the S-eating grin on Zach's face that I did not win, right?
I mean, I think it's up for debate. I wasn't smiling about that. Something different. But Mullins was 9 for 45, which is 200 batting average. But he did have 6 doubles, 5 RBIs, and a home run. Austin Hayes was 13 for 47. That's 276, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, but only 2 doubles. It's not that far apart. I think Hayes probably got the win here.
Hayes wins.
Okay.
It's take to rake.
I'm smiling about something completely different.
And 200 is not raking.
I agree.
275, the home runs, the RBIs. That's a nice 2-week stretch. You won. I'm not even giving it to you. You won. Now, Bob, since you have been on this show before, it's not your first time on this show. We're gonna let Zach pick first because he did win. You're gonna pick second. I'm gonna pick third.
Sounds good to me.
Oh,
I'm going to take Trey Mancini. He's been playing well lately.
Tearing the cover off the ball for 6 weeks.
I feel like the power's starting to show back up for him a little bit. I'm going to go Trey.
All right, Bob, you're up.
Give me the struggling rookie, Adley Rutschman.
Ooh.
Not in a big way over this next week. He's due. He's hitting the ball hard.
Did we lose you?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you after he's hitting the ball hard.
Yeah, he's hitting the ball hard, right into the shift. He's not striking out a ton. Some people are freaking out. I'm not one of them. I think he's gonna rebound big time over the next week. So give me the kid behind the plate.
Yeah, he's definitely put together some great at bats, and but I think that's a solid pick there. I'm going back to the well here. I'm taking Austin Hayes. I think he's the best player on the team right now, and he's come up in some big situations the last couple of games and not come through, and I think that really irks him more than anything. I'm taking Austin Hayes to have a big week for the Orioles this week. So that's Zach taking Trey Mancini, Bob Phelan from the On the Verge podcast taking Adley Rutschman, and your host, Paul Valley, taking Austin Hayes for this coming week. Bob, what can we plug for you before we let you go?
Yeah, just give us a follow on Twitter at BSL On the Verge, or search BSL On the Verge in any of your podcast apps that you get them from, and give it a show a listen. We have pretty good guests on to help cover up whenever we have a weakness or two, so makes us look smarter. I think we do a good job of just covering the minor league organization as a whole, so if that's up your alley, give us a follow.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate your service. Everybody loves the Twitter handle and the podcast and all the great stuff that you put out for us every day and every week. So thank you, Bob. Thank you for joining us on the show, and we'll talk to you down the line, all right?
All right, thanks a lot.
Take care. And that was Bob Phelan from the On the Verge podcast joining us to talk a little bit of the Orioles minor league system, which has been, despite not great records, the individual performances have been pretty outstanding. So another thing that is outstanding is the Press Box print issue, and these are the final days to get this print issue of Press Box on the cover. Luke Jackson profiles Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman, diving into where his passion for catching in baseball came from and how he uses that passion to elevate those around him in the Orioles organization. Also inside, Bo Smolka takes a look at how the Ravens' 2021 draft picks can make progress this season, and Glenn Clark offers a very unique tribute to former rival Mike Krzyzewski that all Maryland fans can appreciate. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com. And coming this Wednesday, our very first Coaches issue of Press Box featuring John Harbaugh on the cover. You won't want to miss that. We got to catch a final break. When we come back, final thoughts on the Batter Round.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Are you ready, soccer fans? This summer, the English Premier League returns to Baltimore. Arsenal, Everton, square off in the Charm City match, July 16th, under the lights at M&T Bank Stadium, home of the Baltimore Ravens. This is your only opportunity to take in a Premier League match this summer in the Mid-Atlantic region. Individual and group tickets are on sale at BaltimoreRavens.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman, diving into where his passion for baseball and for catching comes from and how he uses that passion to elevate those around him in the Orioles organization. Also inside, Bo Smolka takes a look at how the Ravens' 2021 draft picks can make progress in year 2, and Glenn Clark offers a very unique tribute to former rival Mike Krzyzewski that all Maryland fans can appreciate. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Let it play.
I will. I'll let it play. Paul, by the way, are you going to the Paul McCartney concert tomorrow?
I am not.
Okay. I will be there. I'm excited for it. It's going to be good.
You are. I'm a
McCartney guy.
I like Paul McCartney. I just not enough to spend the kind of money I would need to spend to go to this concert.
Fair enough. I know Glenn said on Glenn Clark Radio the other day when I was on there that he had he spent a lot of money on it and he was excited. So I think I think a lot of people have spent a lot of money on this show. So it's a pretty big one.
I think he mortgaged his children's college fund.
That's what I think that's the joke he made.
Yeah. He said, thank God my kids weren't going to college anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Those tickets were very expensive, and
you got cheap ones.
I got
$70 a pop.
I'm
what you're going for,
way
right?
up top.
Yeah,
though. I'm all the way up. And if you wanted to be a little closer, which I mean, I could have gone closer. I feel like I'm usually the person who spends kind of the least amount of money on tickets. If I can be just there, I'm happy enough to be there instead of being 5 rows from the stage or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, that's...
So I have my Sunday Orioles ticket plan, and I only have one ticket for each game. So I'm allowed to exchange tickets to get 2 tickets for a game and stuff like that. So what I did was, and I talked to my wife, I talked to Mrs. Valley before I did this. I said, hey, the Angels are coming to town July 10th. It's a Sunday. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be able to go? She goes, yeah, I can do that. Because she loves Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
1, the game starts at 12:05, and I play baseball in the mornings. That would be it'd be a stretch to get there.
Tough.
2, she actually does have to work that day, so I exchanged those 2 tickets for a this past Wednesday at the ballpark against the Cubs. It's beautiful all day. A little humid, a little muggy.
Yeah.
We get down to the ballpark. And they didn't even take the field for warm-ups.
Yeah.
The thunderstorms came through. We drove down to the ballpark to pay $15 to park, to go inside and spend $25 on 2 beers, another $25 on 2 hot dogs with some French fries. Your boy spent $60, almost $70 for a glorified hot dog and a beer.
Wow. Yeah, on Wednesday night, I was in the mountains of West Virginia, and I was driving on very unlit highways all through these.
Was Ryan Mount Castle there?
Funny. And, I mean, these highways are, not lit at all. I'm talking about 68. I mean, you know the area out there in West Virginia. And these thunderstorms rolled through it. Oh, my God. I mean, it was, some of the worst. So I can only imagine what was happening down here at Camden Yards.
It rained for, 7 hours. Mm-hmm. That game had no chance of getting off the ground. And then I had to walk. I led my beautiful, wonderful wife to the part under the warehouse where you can stand underneath the warehouse.
Yeah.
I led her to that area, and I walked back to the car in a torrential downpour, and then drove home. soaking wet.
And left her there under the overhang. And,
I left her. I had to go back down to no. I picked her up. Her walking just from under under the warehouse to my car, which was probably 50 feet from there.
Sure.
She was drenched.
Yeah.
She was drenched. So not a great experience. We had a great time. It was our date night. We don't have too many of those these days because we got the puppy and we're trying to save for a house and whatnot. But we decided to have a date night, and I enjoyed her company. We enjoyed each other. But it was basically a 30-minute drive for the most expensive hot dog and beer in the world.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Anyway,
it's okay.
C'est la vie.
It happens.
You got a final thought for me today?
Yeah, I want to talk about Adley Rutschman and Brandon Hyde. This is almost like a sub sounding off segment, I guess, for me. Brandon Hyde the other day left Adley Rutschman out of the lineup and said that it was a regularly scheduled day off. And I get that. I just want to make sure that Brandon Hyde is not keeping Adley Rutschman out of the lineup too much because of his struggles. I think that's the opposite of what they need to do. I think you got to play the guy, and that the only way you get out of these slumps is to be in the lineup every day. Like you saw him hit the double last night. So don't take him out today. You got to make sure he plays today.
I think he's playing today.
And build on that success. He probably will. I'm just saying that
it's a 4 o'clock game. Maybe I don't know.
I get that there are regularly scheduled off days. I get that. But let's DH him, right? Like, he's not catching. It takes a lot of wear and tear off him just to have him DH. He only has to come out of the dugout 4 times for the entire game and actually hit. And it's probably not that much wear and tear on a guy just to DH him. And I think that's what they need to do and not take him out of the lineup when he's struggling. I don't think that's ever a way to get a guy back. Now, of course, you're going to have your off days. I mean, everyone does. But then again, Cedric Mullins basically plays like every day. He's barely ever out of the lineup. So I'm not saying that you're never going to have an off day. But just keep him in the lineup to work on getting that back going.
Especially after hitting the double yesterday. Now,
right.
I happened to miss the double because
I did too.
It was 8-0 and
I was watching something else.
Yeah, well,
to be fair.
The wife and I were watching something else.
Yeah.
And I was preparing for the show. So I missed a double, but apparently he laced it. If he got that double, he had a hit the other day. See if the back can start to get going.
Right.
I agree with you. Keep him in the lineup this weekend and just see what happens. He's probably going to get the day off tomorrow.
I hope not. I mean,
or today.
I think if he gets 4 at-bats a day, that's so much more. And I get it. People talk about mental health and like getting that rest break, and I get it. Like I want to make sure that and I'm sure I want to make sure he's fine with that. Of course, if I'm Brandon Hyde, like I want to make sure of that. But I think there comes to a point where you go, you know what? Like we need to make sure this guy can get consistent at-bats to break out of the slump because he's hitting 150 right now, and he doesn't want to be doing that. I'm sure he wants those at-bats.
It's so funny because we were talking about how Ben Boom and Chirinos were both hitting 141. It's like, there's no way Rutschman's going to hit that. It's going to be that bad. And then the other day I looked at the lineup and he was hitting 141.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, all right. So my final thought for today, and we talked about it already at length. The Orioles got to get this figured out with the on-field product that you've had recently, people coming at you for not spending more than $30 million this year, all the losing you've done over the last 4 decades, basically over the last 40 years, and then to have it come out that there's a lawsuit between the brothers, between Luis Angelos and his brother and mother, it's disheartening. And it's an embarrassing look for a moribund franchise at this point. And I'm just tired of the embarrassment. I'm tired of the embarrassment. Let's get this thing figured out and let's move forward.
Yeah.
And they say that no press is bad press. So even if it's bad press, at least this is bad press. It's bad to see the ownership of a team that's been a laughingstock of baseball for 30 years now also be squabbling over money with each other. It sends a bad message, and when you combine that with the Masson dispute and the fact that they're not spending money, it's frustrating and disheartening. And I think that was my main takeaway. Was not that I'm scared that they're going to move the team, because so many reasons suggest that that's not going to happen, but more over the fact that it's just another log on the fire.
It is. It's another blip in a long series of them, and I think that when it starts building up, like you said, and it starts to become more disheartening and more disheartening when you see the problems just keep building on themselves. And the fact that this is far from over concerns me because this is just the very beginning. Lawsuits last forever. I mean, this could go on for 3 years. I don't know if it will, but it might. I mean, a lot of lawsuits, they go on forever because me and you are not lawyers. We know nothing about the legal proceedings, but it's probably going to go on for a while. And so I'm concerned about that and where it might lead and how much farther apart these brothers might get and how that's going to have an effect on the Orioles in the process. I mean, even Mike Elias, it's not his job at all, and it's not anybody in the front office's job to have anything to do with this or to deal with this, but it's got to weigh on them too. Just the fact that it's happening.
And here's the other thing. By the time that this rebuild is fully realized, right, and they're ready to turn that corner, Mike Elias' contract is going to be up.
Yeah.
And does he really want to work for a franchise that's in this much upheaval?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Elias' job was to come in and rebuild it. Does he want to be there for after that and in result of all these things happening and the Orioles being in the public eye for a long time now because of some lawsuit that happened? Maybe not. I mean, maybe Mike Elias says, "Look, I want to go to another team and rebuild that because I like rebuilding teams." Maybe that's his thing.
As far maybe. I can't imagine he likes losing this much.
Maybe not, but I feel like there is a part of being a GM that's in a rebuild that makes you look so good, right? Like if you're having the successes like Mike Elias has, look, the GM of the Astros right now, I believe his name is James Click, or the Dodgers, whoever it is, they're having success, but they're not necessarily praised for it because, first of all, the guy who was brought in before them probably put a lot of this into motion, and they're not necessarily praised for it because the players are so good, and that's what's taking the light away from them almost. But Mike Elias is kind of at the forefront of this, and he gets to be the guy, and all the praise gets it. So if that's his thing,
but it could be your thing, but then you have to be around for it to reach the level on the field.
True, to get hired somewhere else,
right?
I guess. Yeah.
And if he leaves here and the Orioles aren't contending.
Mm-hmm.
Or he leaves here right when they start contending, he didn't get to see the fruits of his labors.
You're not wrong. That's true too.
And that's for me. That would be a painful thing to put in all this hard work, and then see somebody else reap the benefits.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. That makes sense.
So, great show today.
It was
great show today. Stan with a great segment this week, and hopefully he starts feeling a little bit better here soon because he's been dealing with some illness for a while now, for a few weeks anyway. Really special thanks to Justin Fenton. I was really excited he agreed to come on the show, and then he was even better than I could have imagined. He was that was cool. That was cool, and it really clarified what we were reading in that article from the Baltimore Banner. And be sure to check that out when it does debut. They gave you a little taste, and they're going to give you the whole dish here soon. So check that out. And then thanks to Bob Phelan, who's always great, always comes on and talks about the prospects with us, and really When you think about the fact, what he said, that Gunnar Henderson is 9 months younger at 20 years old than any other player in AAA, and then talks about how Jean Pinto, at 21 years old, is still young for high A.
Yeah.
It really makes it remarkable what Gunnar Henderson is doing.
It's really exciting across the board when you look at Gunnar Henderson and even Jordan Westberg, who got off to a slower start, and what he's doing now. It's exciting. I mean, Gunnar Henderson, lefty home run, his first at-bat at AAA. I mean, the guy's going to be special.
Against a guy who had big league talent.
Right.
And you look at Gunnar Henderson, and you always see Fernando Tatis and Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna, guys who came up as teenagers or 20 years old, and they're stars. And you're like, man, the Orioles don't have that guy. They have that guy.
I think he's the guy. Yeah.
They have that guy, Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar Henderson, the age that he's at and the talent that he's showing at his age, he's one of those guys who, when he gets to the big league level, you can see him being a face of the franchise type of thing. For 15 years.
Well, like you said earlier in the show about Anthony Santander, you said, I think he might be the best player to come out of this. Well, I think it's actually Gunnar Henderson. I
don't think that anymore.
Well, right, no, I'm saying, but that's all right, and you have no reason to now, and you had reason to back then, to be fair. I'm just saying that is now Gunnar Henderson's title. He's going to be probably the best guy to come out of this rebuild outside of Adley Rutschman.
And offensively, he might be better.
I think he will
be better.
Yeah, I think he will be.
Just to have a 20-year-old guy who can play shortstop or third base. And this is a guy who, 7 years from now, we might be having the same conversations about him if he's not extended by the Orioles that we were having about Manny Machado. How do you not build around this guy? He could be, based on what he's doing at such a young age. And look, maybe we're inflating this a little bit, but based on what he's doing at such a young age, this is a guy who could go down as one of the all-time greats that the Orioles
I
have
hope so.
developed.
Yeah, I hope so.
And when you look at the proud history that they've had at shortstop, you go back to Mark Belanger, and then you go to Cal Ripken, and then you go to and look, some of these guys. Mike Bordick was a hell of a shortstop.
Oh, yeah.
And the bat was better than I ever gave him credit for, right? And then Miguel Tejada, and then J.J. Hardy, and then Manny Machado to a certain extent. This could be a guy who extends that lineage.
100%.
You know?
Definitely.
So, guys, great show. Thank you for tuning in to the Batter Round. We will be back with you next week with some more great guests and more great segments. Until then,